living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Hey, I'm FTFE, welcome back to the channel that ties stupidity to the train tracks of knowledge. This is take 2 of this stream, because Wednesday, for some reason, YouTube didn't want me to stream. What we're doing tonight is we are going over a recent debate on modern day debates between the genius intellect, Nathan Thompson, that was sarcasm just in case you didn't realise, and someone who's actually knows about science called Maddie from a channel called Sciencesideup. We'll get to Maddie in 1 second. I just want to introduce Team Skeptic to the channel. How you doing, buddy?
What up, everybody? Good to see everybody. Good to be here.
So you moderated a debate on brainies last night, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I moderated a debate on brainies last night with a complete... I'm not going to call this guy a science denier. He was a science redefiner, okay?
Oh, right.
Like, he didn't deny the power of science. He just says science is powerful and it should be done my way. Which was ridiculous. And you know, it was a pretty good debate between one guy who was in the wrong but experienced and another guy who was in the right but inexperienced, and it came out with I would say it came out pretty much as a draw. So
right.
We're gonna have the guy back on my channel tomorrow night.
Well, you know what debate wasn't a draw, team? That was when Nathan Thompson debated Maddie. Maddie, hello, welcome to the channel.
Oh yeah.
I don't.
I've never known.
Oh,
yeah,
wait, okay.
I've never known a winner to sabotage her own gloating. Okay, this is a first for me. So,
right, I think it's back. Right, people should just refresh and it should come back. There we go. So apparently, Maddie breaks the internet, which is an impressive power. Well done, Maddie.
I am the bane of my school's IT department.
Hey, you know what? Fight. Just to check something. I'm gonna step out of here and I'll come back, but I want to step out of here and see if it speeds it up. I don't know why it wouldn't work that way.
It's working fine now. It's gone back to full power, so it's cool. Right, Maddie, sorry about that. I think the internet was just screwing with us there. Let's play a trick. Right, so you recently had your first debate against the Flat Earther. Unfortunately, your introduction to the world of Flat Earthers was Nathan Thompson. So I'm sorry about that. I thought you did amazingly in the debate as someone who, you're obviously extremely intelligent, but you've never debated the Flat Earther before, and that was evident. But I thought the way that you manhandled Nathan was a thing of beauty. So well done on that. Do you just want to take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself to the audience? Tell people what you do on YouTube and a bit about your credentials?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Maddie. You can find me here on YouTube at Sciencesideup. Just look for the fried egg. It's a pun. I'm currently a PhD student. I study meteorology at the University of Oklahoma. I specifically look at Arctic weather and how it interacts with sea ice. But I've got a pretty diverse science background and I like lots of different fields. So I have a bachelor's degree from MIT in math and earth, atmospheric, and planetary sciences. I then ran off and joined the Navy. I spent 4 years as an instructor at Naval Nuclear Power Training Command, teaching guys that are going to go operate nuclear reactors what fission is. So I taught some nuclear physics for a few years. Then I came to grad school. I got my master's degree in meteorology, and now I'm working on my PhD. So very kind of broad science background, but mostly in like the physical sciences, and that's the sort of stuff I like to chat about over on my YouTube channel. So.
Well, that's amazing. It's nice to have another Navy member here because both team and I were in the military. Team was the scarecrow they would put on the front of the ship to scare enemies away. Yeah,
naturally,
it worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
when light reflected off of me, it worked very well.
Yeah, mostly he only exists in 2 dimensions because he's so thin. In fact, Team generally has to run around in the shower to get wet. It's quite awkward for him.
It sounds dangerous on a ship shower, but
yeah, right.
So, Maddie, you've got these lovely credentials. You spent so long building up your your academic background, why did you want to debate a flat earther?
Um, I like James from Modern Day Debate, and I like Modern Day Debate. I'd been on there one other time talking to somebody who was a big, very into Bigfoot, and that was, I mean, that was a very cordial discussion. You know, it was. I am unconvinced of Bigfoot's existence, but that was a genuinely enjoyable conversation, and James needed somebody to fill in that night. So he was setting up a debate for me like later next month. I forget who with. It might have actually supposed to have been with Nathan. Granted, I didn't really know who Nathan was.
Oh.
But I ended up filling in last minute because the original person who was supposed to debate that night just didn't show. So
It was Reckless Ben.
Yeah, Reckless Ben. He just didn't show up, didn't tell James he wasn't going to show up. So James was kind of in a tight spot, and I was glad I could help him out, you know. But yes, that was like with about an hour's notice, I jumped in. So I didn't have a lot of prep. Oh God.
Animals.
That was Chester. He's a very
Hi,
good
Chester.
boy.
It's right.
Control your animals, Maddie. Control your animals.
Team, you can't say anything. Remember when we were in a live debate and your cat turned off your computer twice?
Oh, yes. Yeah. No, people were like, my cat was doing this whole, going through her cycle. And so she was like, "Meow, meow," and just trying to like put her hands and paws and face on everything. And she seemed to find on my computer twice in one live stream.
Oh, goodness.
Twice.
Very good. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the debate between you and Nathan Thompson. Probably not the entire thing, like not all the super chats and stuff, but mainly his opening statement and the kind of back and forth between you two. There was some incredible stupid in there from Nathan, like we always expect, but he's brought some new stupid to the table, which impressed me. Like the sun is cold.
Electromagnetic wake.
And electromagnetic.
That was the most
still
horrible
don't know
one.
what he was talking about.
I don't think
we'll talk about it when it comes up. I think I know what he's trying to pull from. He's trying to pull from Chenkov radiation. That's the only time I can see an electronic wake or electromagnetic wake behind a particle. But I think that's what he's trying to refer to. But that is not an electromagnetic wake. That's just a phenomenon.
We were talking about hurricanes.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
He's like, well, you ever heard of an electromagnetic wake? And so I was like, of course, I know already from my experience and my understanding of science in general that there's no such thing as an electromagnetic wake. Something like that would probably violate the tenets of special relativity to have a wake of an electromagnetic wake when you understand what a wake means to like a boat. So I started to do some digging and started to look into maybe what he was trying to say. And the only thing I could find was, and I know I'm probably butchering it, as a nuclear engineer over here, I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about with the Chenkov radiation, right?
Well,
Chenkov radiation wasn't something I specifically taught, so I've heard that term before, but I couldn't define it off the top of my head.
So basically, it's when what they do is they have a medium, a liquid medium that where the apparent speed of light is much slower than the electrons moving through the medium. So within that medium, it appears as though the electron is moving faster than the photon.
Oh, okay.
And it creates this blue glow inside of the medium, and it's
if you follow
like
U.S. nuclear energy on Facebook, like really cool people like me, I've seen like the picture of this phenomenon. I just wasn't quite sure what was physically happening. It is a very cool like blue pulse.
Yeah, and it'll actually, whenever there are times when it will actually light up the entire tank in this blue glow, and it's not because the electrons are actually moving faster than light. It's just that within that medium, the electrons move faster than the apparent speed of light. So it's, I think that's what he's trying to pull from, but it still is not, because it does make a wake. It makes kind of like a little wake, if you could imagine a bullet passing through air and looking at the aerodynamics behind the bullet, and it forms that little wake behind it. That's kind of what happens with the Chenkov radiation. So that's the only thing I could think
I don't think
that
that's
he
what
was
he's referring
trying to pull from. I'm sorry.
He's trying to say that there is basically a track in the sky that is like electromagnetism, that this everything, the sun, and that would move along this electromagnetic wake that acts as a track in the sky. That's kind of what he's trying to say, and because, like Tim said, he's heard the term electromagnetic wake, he's just trying to apply it to something randomly.
And again, we were talking about this came up in the context of why hurricanes in the northern hemisphere rotate counterclockwise, and hurricanes in the southern hemisphere rotate clockwise. This was the context.
Look, so here's the thing. I know we're jumping ahead because he's going to be bringing this up, and we can talk about it then as well. But let's just say that it is the electromagnetic wake that this made up phenomenon that he says it is responsible for hurricanes turning clockwise in the south and counterclockwise in the north. I think I got that right. I think it's counter in the north, clockwise in the south. Okay. Yeah. So let's just say that the sun is responsible for that, and that's why you don't get the phenomenon on the other side of the sun, and you don't get, on either side of the sun, you won't get the opposite phenomenon. Well, if that was the case, then during the when the sun is traversing the tropics, then we should see clockwise rotating hurricanes in the northern hemisphere beyond the equator. Even if it was just a few degrees beyond the equator, 5-10 degrees above, we're talking about the sun is at 23.5 degrees north. So even if we give the 10 degrees away, you're still leaving yourself about 15 degrees to expect a hurricane to have an opposite rotation on the other side of the equator. We don't see that. And that's because it has nothing to do with a local sun producing an electromagnetic wake, and everything to do with the fact that the Earth rotates, and that, pole to pole, the equator is the center. So above the equator, we're going to get counterclockwise. Below the equator, we're going to get clockwise, and that's going to happen all year long.
And even more powerfully, it matters that hurricanes cannot form within 5 degrees of the equator, right?
Yeah, I've tried explaining this to flat earthers that even a hurricane tries to go over the equator, it just dissipates. It cannot go over that area of non-rotation, non-linear.
What she's saying is that a hurricane can't even form within a certain area, and the reason why is because there's simply not enough Coriolis force. You're too close to the equator for the Coriolis force to aid in forming a rotating body in the sky, and a hurricane is reliant upon being a rotating body.
Right. So I want to get to going over the debate, but just before that, Nate, we tried doing this stream on Wednesday, but YouTube wasn't having it. A little bit went up, and obviously Nathan Thompson, because he's an egomaniac, he's watching now. Everyone say hi to Nathan, because we all know Nathan's watching now. Hi, Nathan. But he took this screenshot of Maddie. This is his Instagram. The globe is flat, by the way. It's a great name. Well done. And he says underneath, "The globe is flat. This is Maddie. I debated her on the shape of the Earth, and she showed up to the debate review in some kind of dinosaur unicorn onesie. Just wow." I mean, I don't see an issue in a unicorn onesie.
Yeah. The unicorn onesie being worn by a person does not make the Earth flat or the shape of a globe. So what she wore to the debate is nothing. This is just a way of him trying to belittle his opponent so that he could say that he simply won from belittlement, because it was an absolute destruction.
Beautiful
in the debate.
And then he gave a little review of the debate. She didn't have stuff. She said she pinged the moon and studied weather. So globe. Maddie, would you say that's an accurate review of the debate?
I mean, no.
So he kind of forgot that the moon is a solid object there, and that radio waves travel, and we would have no problems bouncing radio waves off of the moon. He doesn't understand that the retroreflectors are a way of adding precision to the measurement of the moon. We can bounce radio waves off the moon and we'd get a bunch back. But when we direct the radio waves at a retroreflector, and the way a retroreflector is designed is to reflect the wave exactly in the direction it came from. Once you do that, you can, with precision, measure the distance to the moon. That's the difference. He doesn't understand it.
He just doesn't understand. We know that.
Yeah, and it was a very fun thing I got to do as an undergrad. I was interning at NASA Goddard, and we went out one night it was a calibration test, right, to make sure that communication and other instruments were properly calibrated. You want to very precisely measure the distance from the Earth to the moon. How do you do that? Shoot a laser at the retroreflector and measure how long it takes to get back. So that was super fun, and I got to pew pew fire the laser.
He also has a
problem,
and I think he brought this up in your debate. He has a problem understanding that light is a constant speed, no matter which direction it goes in. And he says he'll use the argument, oh, well, we've never directly measured the one-way speed of light, which is true. We haven't. Believing light moves constantly in both directions is an axiom that we just accept. We just say, why we don't have any proof to show that light moves in one direction for one viewer at one speed and another speed because another viewer is looking in an opposite direction. We've never seen that. There's no reason to assume that, but we've also never measured it to be opposite to that. So it is an assumption we make, but it's a valid assumption in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of those things that no matter how many times we measure the speed of light, always the same, right? And there was a paper that came out very briefly when I was an undergrad. This would have been about 2011. And it was out of, I think, CERN, where what ended up having happened was an instrument was improperly calibrated, right? There was a measurements issue. But they measured the speed of light to be something different, right? And this paper was like, guys, help. We think something's wrong. We can't figure it out, right? And I remember that so distinctly because everyone was like, oh my gosh, what if they measured the speed of light to be something different? I mean, they obviously couldn't have, but oh my gosh, that'd be so cool. One of the things that you get when you talk to flat earthers or I weirdly spend more time listening to young earth creationism stuff. It is this idea that scientists are like, no, things have to be this way or else, like it's a very rigid type of almost like a belief structure, when it's like, oh no, it would be super cool if the speed of light was different. That would mean really interesting things for physics, but it's just not. No matter how many times we measure it, it's always the same. So if you can demonstrate that the speed of light would be different for a different observer, right, please collect your Nobel Prize. Because, that's the degree of discovery that would be. So you can't just throw that out in a debate on YouTube as though it's fact.
We say this
and I guess they also tend to forget that we have a mathematical equation that we use to determine the speed of light. Before we ever measured it with precision, we first measured it, or we first predicted its speed. This was Maxwell's equations. This is one of Maxwell's big discoveries, was understanding this relationship between mu naught and epsilon naught. Which are fundamental properties of the universe. So unless those values change, the speed of light will never change. And once we started measuring with precision, it was the realization that, oh, hey, look at this. Light moves at the same predicted speed as electromagnetic waves. What if light is an electromagnetic wave? And that's where that study began. And again, Nobel Science Prizes were won because of this discovery. So Nathan, if you've discovered something different, by all means, write whoever it is that's responsible for handing out the Nobel Prize, and go be the first flat earther to ever win one. I would love you to do.
We do say
that.
this to flat earthers quite often. You define physics and make up their own laws of physics. So they should all have Nobel Prizes. All right, let's get on to listening to Nathan lose a debate to someone who's never debated a flat earther before. Like I said, we're going to listen to Nathan's opening statement, and anytime you want to pause and talk about anything he said, Maddie, just shout at me to pause, and I'll pause it. Okay?
Assumed all light is hot.
All right.
So, no.
Let's get to the right part. This is a bit further on. Oh God,
so there is an angle.
That's the bit where he says moonlight's cold.
So
did you go first, or did Nathan?
Missing Earth curve.
No.
In the future,
I went
including
first.
tomorrow night, we'll have a juicy one. And so with that, we'll kick it over to Nathan Thompson for his 10-minute opening statement as well. Nathan, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, James. I really appreciate the platform you run and the work you do. I've been a Patreon of you for a while, so thanks for that. All the debates you do for a lot of work, not just in the debate, but behind the scenes. Maddie, thank you for joining me for the debate. I appreciate you taking.
Yeah, Maddie, what did you think when you saw he was in a car?
I was a little confused. He said that he had been. They were like out of town and didn't have access to better internet.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
he has to drive to internet hotspots. That's his problem. He has to drive to the internet hotspot.
That's not just his car. That's his car/home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Finding a
dog
flat
kennel.
earther, yeah. Finding a flat earther debating from a car or doing videos from a car is a very normal thing. Honestly, surprisingly, it's a normal thing to find. It's like they can't have a stable home because they're crazy or something. But anyway, and poor doggy. Yeah, Gio, and I told Maddie about this, that Gio is forced a vegan diet upon it. Could you imagine never giving your dog meat?
Poor Chester.
Yeah.
You don't know who I am. My name's Nathan Thompson. I used to have a YouTube channel called Nathan Thompson, but that got deleted. I used to run the largest flat earth research group in the world, 150,000 members, but that got deleted. So
what did that sound like?
Now, well, let's make sure that everybody understands that when he says he used to run the largest flat earth research group in the world, half the people that were in there were brought in by other people. That's how I joined. One of my friends who is not a flat earther, my actual assistant was not a flat earther. She's the one that sent me the invite to join and added me to his group. It wasn't anything like, it doesn't mean there were 150,000 flat earthers. There were probably 1,500 flat earthers and 148,500 people laughing at flat earthers.
Yeah.
Also, let me just be clear. He says research group and he means Facebook group.
Yeah, no, he called it the world's largest research group. That's what he says all the time, which is hilarious. Both Team and I got booted from there, and I think Team more than me, but it was part of the reasons we started our channel. Because flat earthers being so stupid. We just went in there and asked questions and got booted. I just asked a question about gravity, and they deleted me for being a troll. And so no, it wasn't a research group. It was an echo chamber that had 150,000 members, yet he could never get more than 10 people watching a stream. So weird.
Yeah.
So the truth is getting buried, guys. They don't want anyone saying anything against High Priest Fauci or the Lord and Savior of COVID, Bill Gates. So just be careful out there. Make sure you test all things yourself and hold fast to that which is true.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
How am I, a private citizen, supposed to test a vaccine for myself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife got the vaccine and it's fine. I mean, all that's appeared is a tattoo of Bill Gates on her arm.
I get my second one next week. But vaccines are great. Vaccines are so safe. And at this point, I was like, oh God, I wasn't prepared to debate vaccines. I'm not a doctor. So I was really hoping he was going to not go down that rabbit hole.
And this is something they will do to you too. And this is something from just debating as many flat earthers as I have, and Fight can attest to this as well. They will throw so much on you that you'll get lost in just the amount of information even if it's bad information, the amount of information that's coming in. Then you're like, remember exactly which ones are relevant to the discussion. And when you don't address something, that's a win because she didn't address this. Well, she didn't address your vaccine claims either, but you didn't. This wasn't a debate about vaccines. So you can't claim that as a win, but you can say I threw that in her face so that I could hide this electromagnetic wake underneath that, you know, like shit like that.
That's a tactic he uses is he tries to pivot away from whatever it is you're talking about, you know. And so that's my only intent, like my only like plan through this debate was just to make him try to stick to one topic as much as possible. Which, you know,
yeah,
we'll see how well that went.
Team, would you do me a favor, just turn your audio down by about 30%?
I did.
Right, thank you very much. Cheers.
Turn it down? Turn it down or up?
Yeah, it says yours is louder than ours by about 1.5 times.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't separate the audio coming
better?
out of Zoom. Yeah, that sounds more equal to Maddie. That's perfect. Right, let's listen to him again. Oh, I don't want to. It's like blackboard nails.
Maddie, but your entire opening was not proving Earth's a globe. You're just talking about stuff I say. So I think you have the same problem as a lot of the people who come into this and try and debate flat Earth. It's that you haven't tested Earth yourself, and that's kind of what I've done full time for the last 5 years. So,
Maddie, remind us again, what is it you do? What kind of research?
Atmospheric science.
Atmospheric science, right. So you've never tested anything then?
Clearly not. And that's, I don't even know how to begin to explain that, like, if the Earth wasn't a globe, I couldn't do my research. Or like I don't. It's that's hard to explain to like at a very simple level. But like Coriolis perimeter causes Rossby waves to form form coherent vortices in the polar regions, which we like. It's so ingrained in everything I do. Fluid dynamics on a sphere. That it's not that I haven't tested it. It's that if it wasn't true, like
everything you've done would be
nothing would be. Everything that I do would break.
Maddie, are you sure that you're not a expert in atmoplanic phenomenon? Like it could be atmoplanic instead of atmospheric.
Yeah,
I don't know. My so when you take fluid dynamics, Navier-Stokes equations, and you transform them onto a rotating sphere, right? You get a Coriolis parameter. You get an extra force in your equation, and you have to adjust it because that is effectively zero at the equator. It gets very strong at the pole, but you also get the beta plane approximation. So the beta plane is the first derivative of Coriolis is strongest at the equator, weakest at the pole. So that changes how you do all of your fluid dynamics, all of the math, right? It changes from equator to pole because we're making these different approximations for Coriolis to, make our fluid dynamics equations solvable. And good God, man, I've done that by hand. I've programmed up like models, right, to do that. I've run numerical weather models, so like I've run forecasts. I don't know how else.
But we don't live on a model, says Nathan.
You know what? It's tornado season here in Oklahoma, right? Like, do you know like fewer people die every year from tornadoes now versus 50 years ago because of numerical weather modeling?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and I'm in Texas. I'm in Texas, and you made a good point about when he was saying, "Oh, well, it's 10% wrong all the time," and you were like, "Well, look, here's the thing. We knew about the winter storm. I personally knew about the winter storm from about 8 or 9 days in advance, and it happened just like it was predicted. How did they know that 8 or 9 days later the temperature was going to drop down to 13 degrees? I mean, how did they know that? If predictions mean nothing and weather models are inaccurate, how can they how is it possible for them to have predicted my weather problems so far in advance? Now, the other thing, he makes a good point. He makes a good point when he says, well, they're not always right. Of course they're not always right. We're talking about dynamic systems. New things happen. 9 days from now, something that we weren't expecting may come up, and that will affect how we make our predictions. But the fact of the matter is is that we can damn near at this point in our understanding of weather phenomena, we can predict these things to occur with almost certainty.
Yeah, so 7-day forecasts, especially for things like temperature, are really, really, really good, right? And fluid dynamics, right, is especially like the weather is an inherently chaotic system. Chaos having a very specific definition in math. And he brings up like orbital mechanics, like how can we predict eclipses, like because they're not chaotic, right? So the math is fundamentally different. So there's fundamental unpredictability in fluid dynamics that doesn't exist for things like orbital mechanics. But our 7-day forecasts are excellent. Things that are weirdly difficult to forecast is like amount of snowfall, right? We know you're going to get precipitation, but like how much of that is going to be, how many, is that going to be an inch or 2 inches of snow? That's notoriously difficult to forecast, but we're going to get like temperature right. We're going to get pressure right. We're going to get that you are going to have precipitation. We're going to get that right. Right. And so there's certainly details and there's certainly like room for improvement, but forecasts are darn good, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and for something as dynamic as weather forecast to be 90% right, that's pretty goddamn good. You can say there's a 9 out of 10 chance that in 9 days from now it's going to be 13 degrees. I'm preparing for it to be 13 degrees. I'm not preparing for the 1 out of 10 chance that it's not 13 degrees.
Yeah.
Right, let's get back to it. I'm just going to quickly read some super chats. Peter Flemberg for 56 says, Team and FTFE on the same stream always makes me happy. Hello, Maddie. And then Signastep for $10 says, I'm totally sub to Maddie and I kind of hope she's single.
I'm sorry.
Maddie has...
actually married.
She's married.
I was about to say, Maddie has a fan out there.
But thank you for subbing, though.
Yeah, if you do want to sub to Maddie, which I would highly recommend, the link to her channel is in the description. Average Joe for $5 says, I'm glad you get to teach special ed kids at Prototype. Thank you. Steve O for $2 Canadian says, can't believe I'm giving money to Navy folk. Go Army. There. Senior service.
We'll let him know he can come join us when we need a trench dug. You know, we'll say, hey, come on, dig this trench for us, and he can come dig it for us.
We won't go to you if you need a maths test. Steve O for $2 Canadian says, I've read that one. But the Batch for $2 says, Maddie, I apologize for underestimating you. I think he assumed you were going to lose the debate against Nathan, but that was wrong. Kango24 for $5 New Zealand dollars says, I'm still waiting to find out what an electromagnetic wake is. Yeah, we all are. And Ben Smith for £4.99 says, do you think there's a culture of I don't need facts, I'm free to think whatever in America? That's an interesting question.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so as well.
I had a really good conversation with Erica from Gutsick Gibbon. She does a lot of young earth creationism debunk, specifically with like human evolution. And she recommended a book that I need to read that's called The Death of Expertise. And it's talking about like one of the downsides of the information age being that everyone thinks they're an expert if you just Google enough.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Dunning-Kruger is strong with our generation.
Yeah.
Definitely is. Signastep says that he's heartbroken that you're not single. So,
Oh, I'm sorry, Sigma. We can still be friends.
No, it's a big problem. Condemnation before investigation. We're trained to do this in school. The idea of flat Earth is taught as a sign that someone's, abject, ignorant, moron.
It's true.
And the idea of globe is always portrayed as, such a savior of science and everything.
Yes, because it is.
They ingrained that in our minds. And so you can lead globe earthers to flat water, but you cannot make them think critically about the shape of the Earth. But once you go flat, you never go back, guys. The truth is incontrovertible. Malice will attack it.
Blah, blah,
Ignorance
blah.
will try and deride it. But in the end, there it is.
Speed him up a bit.
And the honest person, when proven to be wrong, must admit he is wrong, or he no longer remains to be an honest person.
Stop it.
So the scriptures that
Stop it right there. Stop it right there. He just said an honest person, a person who does not accept the fact that he has been proven to be wrong, is not an honest person. This goes for you too. He always sees this as an outgoing property of people outside of himself. He believes he cannot be wrong. Therefore, if you do not believe him, then you are being dishonest. There is no way for him to be dishonest in this situation. And that's bullshit. She proved you wrong in the debate. Why are you still flat earther?
I think one of the things that's really important to notice, like when you're listening to somebody, is if they will not say I don't know, or that phrase I don't know. And I never heard him say that, right? I never heard him say the phrase I don't know, or I can't recall, or just anything like admitting not knowing. To me, that's such a sign of intellectual dishonesty, right?
Yeah,
like the people that I respect the most, the scientists that I have respect for, are the ones that are not only aware of what they know, but what they don't know, and like are not embarrassed by that difference. Because if you get embarrassed by not knowing something, then that's going to lead to bad conclusions and mistakes and bad science. And so just saying I don't know is such a sign of intellectual honesty, and its absence is a sign of dishonesty.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a flat earther say I don't know to me. They would rather make up some nonsense
No,
on
we
the
had a
spot.
couple. We had a couple. We did have a couple. I remember.
Yeah,
I recall
no, you're right,
Keith.
maybe a couple.
Keith said, "I don't know" a few times. There were a few of them, but it's
God,
back to
Keith,
your. We can make the prediction with almost certainty that a flat earther is going to come into a debate and not say, I really don't know about that. I just don't know.
Yeah. Did you see the
I'll
last
have to
debate
get
I had
back
with
to you on
Keith,
that.
team? The last debate I had with Keith, he
Yeah,
went
he
crazy
flipped
at
out.
me. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, I saw that.
Guys, say test all things and hold fast to that which is true. So if anyone says, Nate thinks it's flat because it's in the Bible. Well, what's also in the Bible is test all things and hold fast to that which is true. Now, one of the things I've been doing on my Clown World
Hey,
Tour
here's something I tested with your snow globe for myself. The last time it snowed, I didn't feel God picking up the land and shaking it. So therefore, no God, no snow globe.
About right.
Makes sense to me.
But the thing that gets me with the whole argument from Bible and that is that personally I do not have a belief in God, right? But the belief in God does not preclude the earth being a globe. Why could this almighty God have not made a globe in a vast, wonderful universe? Why would a God make a little self-contained dome for people that they could never get? Is your God not as powerful as other people's God? Maybe, I don't know.
Of these 150 proofs or so, I have memorized that the Earth, I don't know if you can read those, but I did write a mirror image for you guys.
I could not read it. I don't care that you wrote it mirror image so I can read it backwards. It's just a list, dude.
Yeah, I wrote it mirror image, so it must be true. If you ever notice anybody that's intelligent, that's just a brain thing. If your brain is equipped to do stuff like that, then you can do. It's the same thing as like, I am not an artist. I cannot draw a picture. Does it make me any more less intelligent or smarter than an artist? No, it just means that their brain thinks in a way that allows them to express art better than I can. That's it. That's it. They could be a flat earther and a better artist than me. Doesn't mean anything. Writing backwards, Nathan, good for you. You spent your time learning a fucking useless skill, and maybe that's the reason why you are a flat earther. You worked on that instead of learning school.
Yeah, but team, can you bounce a golf ball on a hammer whilst reciting the alphabet backwards?
On my meat hammer. Hey, I can recite. If Nathan wants to say reciting is part of intelligence, I can recite the Greek alphabet forward and backwards. So,
okay.
And that's we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, where I was talking about like he is very good at memorizing, right? Mm-hmm. But it just memorization and understanding aren't the same thing.
No.
And like not at all. And I think he demonstrates that a lot here, as he'll just recite things without understanding them, and think that that's impressive.
Yeah,
and to me it just isn't. I don't value memorization. Even when I write tests for my students, I very rarely like reward memorization on an exam. It's
demonstration over memorization is a lot better, because if you can demonstrate it, then there's a greater possibility that you understand the mechanisms of why this is working the way it is. When you just remember the formula then yes, you can come to the same answer. But when presented with a problem that falls outside of the parameters of that answer or of that formula, you're going to be lost because you don't understand the underlying concepts that are responsible for the formula being the way it is.
So my favorite test question I've ever written, I was teaching a gen ed at the university, and it was for severe and unusual weather, and we did a whole unit on hurricanes, right? And so their test was I made a fake state, and I gave them a forecast for a hurricane, and I made my students pretend to be like the governor of the state. And like, all right, here's the best information that you have. Here's the resources you have access to. What decisions are you going to make and why? And I made them justify it. And they really enjoyed that. And also I didn't have to worry about anybody cheating because you can't Google that answer. And so like, to me, like that's understanding. That's demonstrating what you know.
Yeah.
Not like, I don't care if you can recite. Well, I mean, Nathan might need to learn to recite like the precursors necessary for a hurricane. We get into that later in this. But like knowing that doesn't mean you understand it and can apply that knowledge usefully.
Thing is, what he's doing there, right? He's showing this big list of things that he's written down, right? Oh, look, I can memorize this entire list of things that I call proofs. But then he'll attack people like you and me and team who have studied and have actually demonstrated our ability to use the knowledge that we've gained and call us indoctrinated and say all we did was memorize some words in the book and get a degree. Whereas it's exactly the opposite. We are the ones that you don't get a degree by memorizing. I mean, I'm sure you can pass a degree at the most bottom level maybe and not completely understand things, but to get a decent score, you have to demonstrate the knowledge that you have been given, demonstrate that you can apply that to the real world and actually use the knowledge that you've gained. And that's a different thing to memorizing a list. You have to learn how to actually use your knowledge in the real world.
And I'd like to point out that like my opening statement, all I did was like, if I looked at one of your debates you had with him, fight, and somebody else, and I watched his opening statement, and which was the same, and he repeated a lot of I don't quite want to say questions, but he made some statements about the atmosphere and how it behaved, and those were incorrect. And so I addressed those specific points. And that's all my opening statement was.
Which, as a last-minute stand-in for a debate like you were, was really good. You actually researched the opponent, the normal points that he makes, and, all right, you didn't really have your own opening statement that's evidence for the globe as such, but it showed that you'd done research on your opponent and the points that he would make, and that you had knowledge to debunk him. And he kind of complained about that. But he's got, when in his opening statement, it's the same opening statement. He did the same one in the debate against me. He did the same one in the debate against Team live in person in Dallas. It's the same thing it's the same script that he says when he's at the Flat Earth International conferences. He hasn't changed this script for so long.
Well, and if I was going to rewrite my opening statement, I would, I made an assumption in there that I didn't say out loud that I probably should have said out loud, which is, so globe Earth is a standard science, right? So if you want to overthrow it, right, the burden of proof is on not me, right? Because everything I do makes sense. All of atmospheric science works on a globe, right? And it doesn't work on a plane. And so I guess I came in it sort of working with this is the standard position, right? This is the settled science. And so if you want to, so now the issue is, do your issues or do your questions or your concerns, are those sufficient to overturn standard science? And if the answer to that is no, which it is not in this instance, then like, sorry.
Yeah. Right. Let's listen to more, get through more of his opening statement.
The next page.
It's painful.
So you should be able to read those. Leonardo da Vinci did all his journals mirror image.
We don't care.
He was arguably one of the most creative people of all time.
He also thought the Earth was a globe.
I would look into that for sure, but we've got abyssal planes, guys, accelerometer, Aries failure.
Days when they have a severe refractive index, an extreme refractive index. In fact, he didn't even mean to capture the mountain that he captured. He actually was there to photograph another mountain, and it wasn't until he developed the film that he realized that he caught the silhouette of the mountain that was even further away. Why do we not see this every day on clear days? Why do we have to wait until refraction, the refractive index, is at the most extreme to see something we wouldn't normally see? If the Earth is a globe, then it is explained perfectly. The light is bending around the curve. If the Earth is flat, you have no explanation. You should be on a clear day. You should be able to get enough elevation to just see above low-level buildings, and you would be able to see everything you would be able to see on only the most refractive days. You should, but that's not the case.
Yeah, the reason, team, is because the Earth isn't flat, and flat earthers are all fucking idiots.
I've tested Earth in 9 states and 2 continents. It's flat everywhere. Not just that, but the sky is a map and a clock. We have 88 constellations and a northern pole star. They've been using the northern pole star and the 88 constellations to celestial navigate the oceans since all of recorded history. They use astrolabes and sextants and
what
both things that only work on a globe.
Right? Like these are factual things that work just fine on a globe. Like what does this have to do with the Earth not being a globe?
He assumes
and
that
then he
only
conveniently
work on a flat
doesn't
Earth,
even acknowledge the southern pole star.
Right?
He conveniently doesn't acknowledge the fact that our North Star was different during the time of the Pharaoh rules in Egypt. None of this is ever acknowledged by them. The only acknowledgement they have is in the moment, in their brief period of time, which on the cosmological scale is less than 1% of 1% of 1% of 1 second of a day. So he thinks that he can determine the entire cosmology of the universe based on this ridiculously small, not just point of view, but this ridiculously small amount of viewing time, of time to run an experiment. Do that experiment over fucking 2,000, 3,000 years. Come back to me and tell me that star is in the same place.
Yeah.
He's missing the point about things like sextants, though, which, when you map out how they actually work, conforms to a globe and not a flat Earth. We've done this live, team, to flat Earthers. If you're at the North Pole, then Polaris is 90 degrees ahead. For every 69 miles that you travel away from the North Pole, the angle of Polaris in the sky reduces by 1 degree. Every 69 miles is 1 degree. If the Earth was flat, the angle that Polaris changed in the sky for every 69 miles would get more and more and more for each 69 miles. Because if you just did it by 1 degree, you would end up with conflicting positions for Polaris in the sky. But if you map out that
you're asking them to understand basic trigonometry at that point. That as well as I do that's asking a bit too much of them.
But as someone who's been a sailor and has used a sextant to navigate the oceans, it just doesn't make any sense at all if the Earth is flat. And for flat earthers to constantly say, well, they've used the stars to navigate, they've used astrolabes, and they've used sextants. Well, yeah, you've just demonstrated the Earth is a globe, because all those instruments only work if the Earth is a globe.
Ooh, fun fact. There's still a system that uses stellar navigation. It's I think it's actually ballistic missiles, nuclear missiles. Because GPS would only be marginally more accurate than how precise the stellar navigation is. And stellar navigation isn't affected by, say, a giant EMP in the terrifying event of nuclear war. But
that I didn't know. I'm gonna have to look that up. That I did not know.
That's cool.
That's cool.
I love talking to smart people.
I'm full of random facts.
We're not blasting through space, okay? They say on the mainstream model, Earth's moving 500,000 miles through the Milky Way. It's moving around the sun 66,600 miles an hour. It's spinning faster than the speed of sound, which is 666 knots.
When they say things like the Earth is spinning faster than the speed of sound, it's such a nonsensical thing to say, because the speed of sound is dependent on a medium. right? The speed of sound in water is about 700 times faster than the speed of sound
Yeah.
in air. The speed of sound through steel is about 12,000 times faster than the speed of sound through air. The speed of sound in space, which the Earth is rotating in, there's no such thing. You don't have a speed of sound in space because there's no medium. So that
Not to
sentence
mention,
is dumb.
even if you're just giving him the fact that he's talking about here on the surface of Earth, the speed of sound decreases as you go higher in elevation because the
Yes.
particles the molecules are starting to become more separated.
We're going to get to atmospheric density. Good God, man.
All right, I'll hold off. All right, continue on.
Per second, by the way. And it's got a circumference of 21,600 nautical miles, which is 6 times 6 times 600, by the way, which coincidentally matches up close to the moon's diameter, which is 2160, which is 6 times 6 times 60. But it all works, guys, because of big G, which is 6.67. It's a total joke, guys. I'm sorry that they teach this to children. I'm sorry, adults.
That was not me rolling my eyes. That was me trying to check his math in my head and then just getting distracted. Like, I don't...
Yeah, 6 times 6 times 60, right? That's what he said. What does that even make a difference? Who cares? 6 times... that's not 666. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can pull a 6 out of each... Yeah, you could pull a 6 out of each number, but it's still not 666, you know? It's
right.
Like, and then at the same time, when he's pulling up the Newton or the Newton's gravitational constant, it's not even if it's 667, that's still not 666. If it was 666, we would have a completely different reality.
Yeah. So he's just this is this random numerology rant that is not like 6 times 6 times 600. There's 600. I can't do the math in my head. It's fine. But I don't even think it works out that way. Right?
Flat Earthers trying to, they don't really do, what you got to understand is they don't really do maths. They take numbers and say numbers like it means anything, but they don't actually have the ability to apply those numbers to anything. Like, they keep saying, the Earth's tilt is 66.6 degrees. And you're like, well, it's not. The Earth's average tilt is 23.5. I mean, if you take 0.1 away from that and reverse it, you get 66.6, which also isn't the number 666.
Right. Well, and it's the Earth's tilt. By the way, so 6 times 6 times 600 is in fact 21,600, but that's not the circumference of the Earth. But anywho, but also, so tilt of the Earth is 23.5 degrees right now, but that's the precession cycle. So that changes from like 22.5 to 24 over a 20,000 year period. Like,
which is why we had a different northern star at a different time, because the Earth wobbles a little bit. It's not always stuck in this tilt.
Oh gosh, sorry. Random fact about the tilt. The moon holds us pretty more upright, so we're not allowed to tilt. Our tilt isn't allowed to wobble nearly as much as other planets. So Mars's axis of rotation swings through like 50 degrees. Because it doesn't. Its moons are captured asteroids, not like the size of a body, so they don't have the same gravitational tug. So that's please explain to me how. Like, there's another, please, Flat Earthers, please explain also, like, why is Mars's tilt different? Though I don't even know if that's a question.
Mars is just a light in the sky, according to
I was about to say, you could not ask them. It's just a light in the sky. It doesn't tilt. Everything you've ever seen that shows tilt is simply a CGI representation formed by NASA or whatever NASA organization that was around 2,000 years ago.
Even though tomorrow we're about to do the first ever test flight on Mars. You know, we've literally got something there that's about to attempt to fly on another planet, but it's not real.
Let's propagate these lies. It's time for us to wake up, remove the scales from our eyes. So
remove the scales.
If an honest man's proven to be wrong,
he
must admit he is wrong, or he no longer remains to be
reference to a miracle of Jesus.
So that was one thing I had to face is, am I going to be an honest man and tell people the truth about Earth? Because I've tested it myself.
No.
I know it's not curving in all directions.
Did he just say, am I going to be an honest man?
Yeah.
So, Maddie,
Yes, he
Nah.
did.
you don't know about that much about Nathan Thompson, do you? Do you know what the Clown World Tour is?
What is the Clown World Tour?
So he had kind of a partnership with another flat earther called Austin Whitsitt and their little band of crayon munchers. They planned to do a tour of America in a car, and because we call them clowns, they call it the Clown World Tour. They're going to drive around and try and spread flat Earth. Nathan turned up to Austin's house with an RV instead of a car, and they were all really excited. And they went off on their Clown World Tour. Well, about 2 weeks into the Clown World Tour, all the funds for the tour that they've been asking for had all been sent to Nathan, and everyone else that was in the RV started asking Nathan for food and fuel for the car. Then Nathan ran away and left the tour with no
Oh
money.
no.
And now there's two Clown World Tours. There's the guys on the RV, and there's Nathan going around in his car/home because he basically stole all the funds from the tour. And he's like, well, they sent the money to me, so it's my money. Well, yeah, but they were sending it to you because everyone was saying send funds for the tour to Nathan. So Nathan, to call himself an honest man, is, I think, the height of irony, really. Because even to other
Okay.
flat earthers, he can't be an honest man.
I will say this. I had two separate members of the Flat Earth community reach out to me after that debate to apologize for Nathan's behavior.
That's amazing. That is amazing that you've had flat earthers say, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
If Earth's a ball 24,901 miles around, like they say, that would necessitate the Earth curve would be 0.666 feet per mile squared. I didn't make up that number. That's according to
Actually,
Pythagorean
no.
Yes,
theorem.
you did.
Sajida.
You did make up that number. That's not how it works.
No,
But
it's
okay.
really not.
Also, notice I don't get it. It's degree per mile squared. Like those units aren't even right.
He said degree per mile squared.
Yeah. Because I'm assuming he's using approximation for curvature. That's a parabola, right?
Yeah, he's using the
Yes.
8 inches per mile squared chord measurement for trying to say, well, this is how much drop you should see, which, I mean, if you take it as a chord measurement, it is kind of correct, right? But if
Right.
you take it as a measurement of actual drop, it's a parabola, like you say. You can't have a single function come back on itself, so it is a parabola.
And it does work for shorter distances. Like if you're actually going to be measuring your, like the drop across 2 or 3 miles, and you want to put it in a way that you can understand it, and you say, okay, if I assume I'm at the top, how much of a drop should I have? And like you said, it's more of a chord measurement at that point. But within locally, it's almost imperceptible from the chord against the arc. So
Mhm.
it's not really like a wrong thing to say if you're going to be measuring 30 miles, for instance. But when you talk about 3,000 miles, yeah, you can't do that. Now you're talking about a function that takes away from the surface of the Earth instead of one that follows the surface of the Earth.
And they're trying to use something that.
Are you suggesting that scale and size might matter?
I
when we're
would,
doing
Maybe.
but that would upset flat earthers, so I'm not going to do that.
And also, when they're using the 8 inches per mile squared, they never take into account observer height, because that doesn't take into account observer height. For that, you have to do the equation h equals r
Yeah.
times 1 over cos a, I think, which actually takes into account the observer height and everything as well, and can give you an accurate measurement for any sphere, not just Earth.
Oh.
That's how you would do it on, calculate the drop on any sphere. But
you
So
have
this
to
goes
use
back to
equivalent.
our memorization versus demonstration, and why it's
Yeah.
important to, while memorization is extremely important because you do have to remember why it works the way it does. Just memorizing an equation like 3 or 6 foot over this, 6 inches over per mile square, just memorizing that shit ain't going to help you when you
Well-
can't demonstrate it. I can go and use trigonometry on any size planet to determine at a given height what my what the distance to the horizon would be. I can do that because I understand trigonometry. It's not a memorization thing. I can draw triangles out and go, okay, here you go. There you go. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, and even just a basic, like, we're all maybe nuclear people here, right? like, how many times were you yelled at, like, no, you have to double check your units, right?
Mm-hmm.
Always double check your units. And that because what he said degree, or
He said degrees per mile squared.
degrees per mile squared,
which doesn't make sense.
those units don't make sense, right?
Yeah.
That's
Individually they do, but you not put them together, no.
right, like you're not measuring a drop over an area, you're measuring a drop over a distance.
Yes.
And so those might be the units of the equation, right? But if you don't understand the equation, then you won't understand that that's for what you're talking about here. Those aren't the right units, so that can't be the right equation, right? So something is wrong.
Yeah.
And
but
that's
once
when you do physics and things, like you learn how to check yourself, how to good reality checks.
Yeah. And here, when he's doing this, he's just trying to act like he's using maths, right? Oh, look, I've got maths, I've got, citations, I've got numbers, but then in the next sentence they say to you, well, math isn't reality, we can't, we're not going to listen to math. So he's so inconsistent just with himself.
And AutoCAD, which is an engineering program they use to make parts. Okay, I didn't make this up. This is the globe Earth map. So it would curve that way in all directions. The problem is, let's say you include the observer height. Well, you include the observer height, now the horizon would be 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. So at 1 foot, the horizon would be 1.225 miles out from the observer. The problem with that is we falsified it with the black swan. So the horizon is actually 10 times farther than it should be, which means either Earth's 10 times bigger of a ball than they say it is, which would make the circumference of the Earth the orbital path of the moon, which means, well, basically NASA's lying about everything.
So, Maddie, do you know what the black swan argument is?
I had no idea what he was talking about at
Right.
this point. I was just zoning out.
I should have the picture here. So, flat earthers, go on, team. Yeah, you explain.
No, go ahead. I was going to explain it while you grab the picture. Okay, so here's what it is. There are these oil platforms at this one location in this one observation, at which somebody took they made an observation of a platform that should have been hidden by curvature. At least a portion of it should have been hidden by curvature, and you can see damn near the bottom of the platform. Therefore, the Earth is flat. Disregarding the fact that the conditions you can obviously see, like you can't even make out a straight line on the platform itself. Everything about the picture is wavy and you can see hazy. Look at all this. Look, you can obviously see something that's further back due to an increased amount of refraction inside of the picture. However, they refuse to accept that under a clear day where there's minimal refractive effects, that you can't see half of the further away platform. It's half of it's missing. Why is half of it missing when refraction is not an issue? But all of it can be seen when refraction is excessive. Here it is right here. Here's the non-refracted image. They won't explain this, but they'll use that one observation. The one observation trumps all of the other observations.
Yeah. And they call it the black swan because they say, well, all swans are white, but no, here's a black swan, because they don't understand the black swan argument. It doesn't disprove white swans. It means you have to explain both black and white swans. So they tout this observation out. Look how far the horizon is. It's behind these oil platforms. This is reality. But I mean, I don't know if you've ever been around a crane, Maddie, but do cranes normally look like that to you on the left there?
That looks real broken.
Yeah. So yeah, this is what he was talking about.
Functional.
This picture is how he was claiming to you he has falsified the curvature of the Earth by this picture. That was his claim there.
Oh no.
And you're not allowed to show any other picture, because the moment that he shows one black swan, then your assertion that all swans are white is incorrect. Yeah, so in the non-refracted photograph would be your white swan. This is what everybody believes, that there is nothing that you cannot see beyond the edge of the horizon, that everything beyond that will begin to sink. The black swan then says, well, your idea, what they change is they say you know, the horizon itself is your white swan. Now we've proven that there is no horizon, that there's only a limitation on the amount of object you can see by producing a black swan. But they just do not consider that that rule does not apply here, because we have already taken those factors into effect, and nowhere on our model or our understanding or interpretation of the model says that picture is not possible. In fact, we say that under days of maximum refraction, that's what we should see. Not seeing the platform in the back would be the black swan.
Yeah.
So now, knowing what the black swan is, Maddie, how would you have responded to that?
Oh gosh. So he made so many claims is the issue, right? So
yeah,
he
exactly.
claimed that therefore, if the Earth is round, in order for that picture to exist, then the Earth's radius must be 10 times larger than what it actually is, and that doesn't follow. So like that's sorry, he's breaking my brain again.
I understand.
It's not. That's not what those words mean. It's sort of where I'm at. I honestly wanted to get into with him on the. Are you all familiar with knee scattering versus Rayleigh scattering?
Kind of.
I understand the concept of Rayleigh scattering, but not knee scattering. I've never heard that.
Okay, cool. So knee scattering is actually why the sky is blue.
Okay.
So it has to do with when the wavelength of the light is approximately the same size as the like reflective or refractive medium it's going through. You get knee scattering, which preferentially scatters certain wavelengths forward versus backwards. Rayleigh scattering is if the wavelength of the light is much less than, like an order of magnitude or more, less than the medium that it's passing through, so like a droplet of water or something like that, then it's going to uniformly scatter in like, horizontally. It's you kind of get cone shaped for Rayleigh scattering. But knee
shout out. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Knee scattering preferentially scatters
ahead.
things forward, and so that's why the sky is blue, because knee scattering preferentially scatters blue light forward, and the other wavelengths get Rayleigh scattered. They're scattered in all directions, so we see the blue light. But so really, this whole black swan thing is a question of, do we understand optics and, you know, how light behaves in the atmosphere, which changes composition and does really cool things. And I'm going to go with the short answer to that is no, that we don't really understand optics. Or again, like knee and Rayleigh scattering are complicated, and they matter when you're doing like atmospheric chemistry, or like if you're designing instruments to study the atmosphere from space or to look from the Earth upwards. But like for you and I, those aren't things we need to know to like exist. Hi, Kitty.
This is Esmeralda.
And I do want to point out, give a shout out to Clive Wells in the side chat, who did an excellent video. I mean, I would say it's excellent for people that are capable of understanding the concepts and the topics that he covers, but it's an excellent video. And I believe the last one that I watched, I haven't seen his newest one, but the last one that I watched was on Rayleigh scattering and went over a lot of the mathematical equations involved in Rayleigh scattering. So shout out to Clive Wells, my main man.
Clive Wells, yeah.
That's awesome, Clive. Rayleigh scattering.
Super smart guy. Smart guy.
It's not an easy concept. We didn't get into all those details until I was like a PhD level course in atmospheric radiation. Right. Oh.
Right. Let's listen to more dumb from Nathan. Where's it gone? I mean, anything Nathan says is dumb. So listening to dumb isn't hard when we're talking about Nathan. Oh, bloody lost the input. Where's it gone? There we go.
Or the Earth is flat and the horizon is apparent. It's not a geometric physical edge of a ball that boats disappear behind, because we've been doing this for 5 years. Get a high power zoom camera or a telescope. The boats that disappear bottom first, you can zoom in and still see them. Now, telescopes
fucking can't.
Of course, obeying the laws of optics. So all things disappear due to the law of perspective. you can't see things forever. We're not Superman. Okay. So.
Yes. No. That's incorrect. That's incorrect. That's incorrect. With powerful enough telescopes and properly designed telescopes, you should be able to focus on an object that's 2,000 miles away. All right. If it's flat and there's no obstruction, there should be no reason that somebody cannot go out to the ocean and film a boat going hundreds, if not 150, 200 miles away with no problem whatsoever.
And the fact that when he's saying we can't see forever, he doesn't understand how, well, light or our eyes work, because our eyes don't have a limit as to how far they can see. If light's hitting our eyes, then we see that thing regardless of how far that light's traveled. You know, that's how we can look at stars in the sky or the sun. Or you know, we're not seeing those objects. We're seeing the light that's either coming from or that's been reflected from them. So, yeah, we can see forever. As long as the light's able to travel, you can see forever.
Also, to everyone in the chat, you know, you'll see people in the chat, guys, calling me Natalie, and they're filled with hatred, and they have nothing better to do than spend their Friday night like listening to me and talking about me. But the scriptures say, "Blessed are you."
Look at the ego.
You're the gift that keeps on giving.
Speak all kind of evil against you falsely for my name's sake. Rejoice, for great is your reward in heaven. So don't you guys worry. I'm gonna throw a party for all you guys later. Thank you so much for the hate. I love it. If anyone else is a hater and they don't have anyone to hate on, feel free to hate on me. Okay.
Yeah, but then you did a video crying in your car.
I encourage that.
James, my opener, I can discuss Maddie's points back and forth. I think it's gonna be real cordial. She seems really cool. So that's what I got.
Yeah, but you're a dickhead,
James.
so
you got it. We will jump into the open discussion, folks. Want to remind you of a couple of things. In particular, our guests are linked in the description. So if you'd like to hear more from our guests, you certainly can by clicking on those links. And also want to let you know, we are thrilled, you guys, as if you were listening via
interested in talking with you about hurricane.
We're very excited that we through the podcast description box. And so with that, thank you very much. We will jump into open conversation, which we will, if it gets rowdy, kick it into 2 to 3 minute intervals between the speakers. The floor is all yours. Thanks so much, Maddie and Nathan.
So Nathan, I don't mind if there's something specific you want to chat about, but I would be really interested in talking with you about hurricanes.
Okay, great. Real quick, I just want to say, you talked about two buddies moving in the car at 60 miles an hour. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you see what he did there, Maddie, right? And this is a
Didn't
tactic
answer
of
my
Nathan.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He saw that you wanted to talk about something, didn't even listen to what you were saying, was just waiting for his chance to speak so he could say what you wanted to. He didn't care what you said there, Maddie. He didn't even hear that you said, I would like to talk about hurricanes. That went straight through his the vacuum where his brain should be. You know, that's what he does. He doesn't want to listen to you. He just wants to wait for the next point that he's able to talk so that he gets his soapbox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Idiot.
Okay, do you know that the two guys in the car, if the car is stationary, that they're also not going to feel any movement because it's stationary?
Correct.
Okay.
So,
Nothing
yeah,
is
so
stationary.
movement at a constant velocity, right? So but what we're talking about here is relative motion. So if they're both stationary, then they won't feel it, right? If I punch my buddy, then it's just the force of my arm. If we're moving 60 miles an hour and I punch him, it's still just the force of my arm. The motion of the car doesn't affect how hard I punch my friend, right? So it doesn't affect the relative motion.
But if you're in a convertible and you throw a ball in the air,
Mm-hmm.
does the ball come right back down when you're going 60
This is
miles an hour, or does
related.
it fly behind you?
God.
Sorry, Maddie, what's that?
Because yes, this is related to relative motion, to what we were talking about. Like, no, if I throw something out of the car, then it's no longer in the car, so it's not moving with me. Goodness.
I would love for him to explain how drones are able to fly inside of cars without smashing through the back window.
He's tried.
But you open it up, you make it a convertible, and it goes up into the other air. It's going to go flying right behind you. Why? Well, because it's just entered into a new reference frame. It's entered into a new atmosphere that within its atmosphere, it's not moving, but the car is moving. So as long as the drone is inside of the car, it's moving relative to the atmosphere that it's contained in. The moment it moves out, That atmosphere is now stationary to the surface of the Earth, and the car is moving. So from you at the inside of the car, you're going to see the drone get flown backwards, but in reality, that drone didn't fly backwards. It remained in its same spot. It went up and it stuck in the same spot.
Exactly. But that seemed to be a very confusing concept to Mr.
Yeah,
Thompson.
everything's confusing for him, Maddie, honestly. His logic
Tying
says that,
shoes is a confusing concept to these guys.
his logic says that if you stand up in an airplane and just slam into the back wall at 500 miles an hour, but you know,
Right.
I guess
I said that in my opening statement, that like, because he tried to make claims about like tailwinds or whatever have you, and I was like, no, that's not a thing, for the same reason that it's not harder to walk up the aisle of the plane than it is down. Like,
according to him, all stewardesses are superhuman.
Clearly.
So that's different, and do you know why?
How's
No,
it
he doesn't.
different? Is the Earth a covered, closed container, or is it like a convertible with no top?
Okay. So the reason that the convertible is different than the closed car, and then I will answer your question. The reason that the convertible is different than the closed car is because the wind, right, the air outside is not moving at the same speed as the car. So when you throw a ball, right, that ball is now affected by the wind above, right? Instead of the negative motion. So again, that's still relative motion. So if the wind was not blowing, right, but I was driving 60 miles an hour, there is now 60 miles an hour going over my head, right? Okay. So
I was
is the
trying to
Earth
see if he
open?
understood
Like,
what
so
I
the
was
Earth
saying,
is
and he
not
just
there.
stared blankly at me.
That's his concentration face.
Oh, okay.
Either that
He's
or
peeing on his own leg at that point.
yeah, that might be the face of concentrating on going to the toilet or something. Again, this is his house / car, so I'm not sure.
Because like that's when I teach, I try to like ask questions and like check in with my students and make sure that like they know what I'm talking about, because there's no point in moving forward if you don't get the starting point, right? But anytime I tried to do that with him, it went poorly. It either was this, or it was just like a blank stare, or he would take that as an opportunity to like interrupt and gish gallop onto some other new topic, and then I'd have to bring us back to where we started.
I think his brain is maybe restarting at this point. Who
It
knows?
does not have a lid. The atmosphere does not have a lid. So it is in fact open to space at a pressure gradient.
So very analogous to my convertible example, not analogous to your car example. Now, what you're saying
Completely opposite.
defies the laws of
Yeah.
Your
fluid
comprehension skills suck.
Oh, and right here, I try to hold them to this, and I should have just said this out loud. There is no law of fluid dynamics like there is laws of thermodynamics. So when he says this, like, according to the laws of fluid dynamics, I ask him in a second here, which law? And this devolves quickly, because what I was trying to get at was there are no laws of fluid dynamics.
Same question I've asked him many times. He says fluid
There's no
dynamics.
such thing as an electromagnetic wake either.
If you ever ask him to, like, all right, you said fluid dynamics. Which equation of fluid dynamics are you referring to? But that's just how fluid dynamics works. Yeah, which part of it specifically? I mean, you know, he doesn't know. He just says words.
Right. So like this like there is no such thing as a law of fluid dynamics. So I
No.
literally don't know what he's talking about.
No one does. No one at all.
dynamics, okay?
Which law of fluid dynamics? I know a lot of fluid dynamics, so which law?
Great. So if you could chill out 1 second, I'm going to talk about it.
No answer.
I'm not going to answer your question. I'm just going to keep monologuing instead.
So we go left and right with this paper, okay? All the air above, because air is also included in fluid dynamics, is not also moving left to right with this piece of paper. What happens is it rolls over the top, okay? And all the air at the top of the car is pretty much unaffected. Now, what you're saying is Earth's rotating and all the air is moving with it, which is not fluid dynamics, not analogous to everything we see in nature. Can you demonstrate that or not?
Yes. So same thing with like the ocean, right? Okay, so
you're struggling to explain it because he's so dumb, aren't you? You're doing what
Yeah.
I have to do, and you are
So
reassessing the level that you have to speak to him at.
Yeah.
here's a
See
good
it?
way to explain it, right? Because what he's trying to say is that when you move your paper underneath, the
Mhm.
entire column of air doesn't move with you to ensure that you're getting the same air pressure down on the bottom. But you could
Right.
also say, well, when I go into a pool of water, if I take let's say, a book down into a pool of water, and I move the book left and right, the water above it, does he believe that the water above it should move with the book to keep the same amount of water pressure on the top of the book? It doesn't have to, because pressure exists in all directions. It's not unidirectional. It's not straight down. At any point when you measure pressure in a fluid system, that pressure is in all directions, left, right, up, down, forward, back. It's all the same.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was really struggling with here is that he's asking me, why do planetary scale phenomena not happen on smaller than planetary scales,
Uh-huh.
right?
Right.
And there's not an answer for that, right? Because planetary scale phenomena happen on planetary scales,
Yeah,
right?
because that piece of paper he's holding is not a planet.
It's because
No.
it's not a planet. It's because so somebody in the comments, they were very cool. They are like an applied physicist, and they talked about an experiment that they do where they're able to like contain a liquid inside. I'm gonna butcher this. They use a laser to like grab particles and like form a little sphere. So they can demonstrate the same type of phenomena, right, that you get when you have like a planet, where you can contain like a liquid or contain water into a small sphere when you apply a force to it, right? Go figure. That's how that
That's what
works.
it's about, applying forces,
Um,
right?
yeah. So what was really that person's they do have a super chat towards the end, and they're awesome, and they came and left a comment on my channel, and they're so I forget their name, and I feel bad about that now. But yeah. So what I was really struggling with here was like you're asking me why does a piece of paper not act like a planet, and I'm like I mean, we can talk about like why does Mercury actually has a very thin atmosphere. The Messenger mission discovered that, but it's sodium based, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why does Mercury's atmosphere, what little thin atmosphere it has to be of a very heavy element because all the lighter elements escape via genes escape, right? Because the gravitational force wasn't enough from that size of a body to hold down smaller elements. Same reason that Mars's atmosphere is 2 orders of magnitude less dense than ours, because
It's like 1% of Earth's, isn't it? Like, and
yeah,
that's the,
because Mars is smaller than Earth, right? And that's
yeah,
why Jupiter is all gas, because it's bigger. Like, because
yeah.
different planets have different densities of atmosphere, because that's how gravity works.
But he doesn't think gravity's real either.
But
So,
he doesn't
and
think
like
gravity is real, so I didn't know where to start.
the big problem with his example there of moving the bit of paper backwards and forwards is that it's not analogous to the Earth rotating in space in any way. The Earth doesn't change direction backwards and forwards, and also, so let's just say he's moving the paper one way. It still doesn't work in the environment he's in because he's saying, well, all the air in the car doesn't start moving with the bit of paper. Yeah, that's because a lot of that air has friction against the top of the car. But the atmosphere that's attached to Earth has no friction on the outside. The only friction that the Earth is, that the atmosphere has, is coming from the surface of the Earth to the atmosphere, which over billions of years, is dragged the atmosphere with it, and it all rotates thanks to gravity and friction. It all is a cohesive body. There is nothing on the outside to give an opposite friction to stop it all rotating in the one way. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So his analogies are just so far away from reality.
Yeah, that's a really great way of putting it.
I've had
We should
practice
press
dealing with
play.
flat
We're going to
earthers.
listen to me stumble for a little while.
Well, like we said at the beginning of this, Maddie, this was your first debate against a flat earther, and I think you did amazingly. You hadn't heard a lot of the flat earth arguments before, so like Team and I, we can instantly respond to most flat earth claims because we've dealt with all their arguments so many times. But you're
Yeah.
coming at this from a position of, well, I actually have this knowledge, and I want to have an intellectual conversation with it. But unfortunately, you're talking to Nathan Thompson, so
The difference here, right, is that the atmosphere is part of the Earth system, right? And it is held to the Earth by gravity, right? So
Seems smile
the
at
atmosphere
gravity
is held
there.
to the Earth by gravity. So then I guess I'm not even sure. How is your question? How does the Earth's atmosphere move with the Earth? That's your question.
No,
What's your
I
question?
asked if you could demonstrate it. You said yes, and then started talking about magical gravity glue, which never been proven. I want to get to in a minute, whether we're talking about Einsteinian or Newtonian gravity, because neither of those have ever been proven, and they've been falsified by things
Stop
like
it there.
terminal velocity.
I want to point something out. This is something, Maddie, you could have said to him. If you get into a hot tub, let's say a static hot tub, right? It's filled with water, but it's static. And you start walking around the outside of the hot tub. Okay. Originally, the inside of the hot tub is not going to start spinning. It's going to take a while for your friction with the water around you to impact enough friction on the molecules next to it, which impact again and again and again and again all the way to the center of the whirlpool. But if you have enough dedication and you continue to walk in that whirlpool, for an hour, before long, you'll notice that the whirlpool will look static to you because everything is rotating at the same rate at which you're walking. You can't impart any more energy into the system. You can't make the center rotate faster, but you can make it rotate at the same rate, degrees per minute or degrees per hour, however you want to discuss that. You can still get it to rotate at the same rate so that it appears static to you. The way that the atmosphere appears static to the rotating Earth is the same way that the pool would appear static to someone walking around a small hot tub long enough so that the friction could turn everything at the same rate.
That's a really good way to put it. I've later, when we're talking about like why the atmosphere doesn't look like a blender, I got to take this really cool class in undergrad, weather and climate lab, and we actually did a lot of like get a table that spins and put a tub of water on it, and you can use that to represent a lot, to do like a tabletop toy model of a lot of different atmospheric phenomena, including you get that whole tub of water spun up and it's a constant parabolic shape.
And if you drop a drop of water or a food coloring into it, it begins to make its own little vortex within the inside because linearly speaking, the outside of the tub of water will be traveling at a faster rate than the inside. Maybe not a faster rate when discussing degrees per unit of time, but when talking about the instantaneous measure of the linear velocity of the outside of the water, it's going faster than the instantaneous measurement of linear movement for the water that's on the inside of the food coloring, and that in itself will form a vortex, and we can predict at which way the vortex will rotate. You spin it faster, you get more rotation on the vortex. Everything comes together. That's our understanding of fluid dynamics, and it's completely consistent with hurricanes.
Yeah, and I wish I would have thought of this at the time, but like if you've got a pottery wheel and a small motor, you can build yourself a rotating Earth simulator,
I think you did mention something like that.
I do mention that in the Blender Earth, but I wish I would have thought of you can build this experimental setup at home for not many dollars.
Maddie has just passed 700 subscribers on her channel, Sciencesideup.
Oh my
that's
God,
amazing.
Thank you guys so much.
Everyone, please do me a favor and give Maddie a sub. She is an excellent science communicator. Let's see if we can get her up to 800 by the end of the stream. That would be amazing.
Well, she lost to Nathan Thompson in a flat Earth debate, so I don't know.
Just like he lost when you spoke to him in Texas.
I lost to him like 10 times already, according to Nathan Thompson. So.
Maddie, team actually did a live face-to-face debate with him. Like, he was in the same room as him and everything.
You have my sympathies and my condolences, because the only thing that kept me sane through this conversation was the knowledge that I could just hang up and leave.
That you weren't smelling him? Yeah.
It's so not true, dude. But let's put the gravity aside for a second. I'm trying to understand what it is you don't understand about behavior of the Earth's atmosphere, like the boundary between the atmosphere and space. Like I don't
understand. So, okay, I'm trying to get you to demonstrate what you're saying happens. Can you demonstrate all the gas moving with the object spinning the gas, or not?
And what does he want me to demonstrate it with in my kitchen?
He wants you to demonstrate planetary.
Do the same thing as something with a large mass. You can't on
So
Earth demonstrate atmosphere sticking to a spinning rock because you're on Earth and the
yes,
gravitational
Earth
pull is towards Earth.
turns out Earth real big.
Earth
Like
real
Yeah,
big.
real big.
Always reminds me of that quote from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You might think that popping down to the shops is a long way, but that's just peanuts to Earth.
excellent.
Tornado is an object that is spinning gas where everything then also moves together.
Okay, but
Hurricanes behave the same way.
what's the cause of a tornado?
The cause of a tornado is of a warm, moist air mass colliding with a cold,
Wow.
dry
Okay.
air mass.
So not the Earth rotating.
No, different thing
Oh,
causing the
okay.
rotation.
So what I asked is you to demonstrate one thing spinning, causing
Mhm.
all the fluid to move with it, cohesive as one synchronous body.
Dude, a
Not
tornado.
I do wanna-
a tornado.
Yeah,
You
I want
can't use
to put a
hurricanes.
qualifier in there because what Maddie said is correct, but it can be interpreted incorrectly as well. What Maddie is not saying is that Coriolis effects are not present in a tornado. What she's saying is that in a tornado, the Coriolis effect is so minute that it actually plays no role on the rotation of the tornado. It's more of pressure of rapidly or extremely different pressures coming into contact with one another and making a localized vortex. And this will cause whether the pressure is a high pressure system or a low pressure system will result in the tornado spinning in opposite directions. In fact, you can have tornadoes on opposite sides of the state that are dealing with different atmospheric conditions that will result in a tornado spinning clockwise on one side of the state and counterclockwise on another. It does not mean the Coriolis effect is not there, but you make a good point of it here in a minute. It's not a 1,000 kilometers wide like you get with weather systems that are involving in hurricanes, where Coriolis, even though it's a small effect, that small effect is amplified over and over and over and actually plays a role in the rotation of the hurricane.
Yeah, so Coriolis is important for atmospheric features that are like hurricane sized or bigger. So it's really important for like global atmospheric circulation. And then obviously hurricanes. But anything smaller, it's too small of an effect for you to really notice. So whether or not a tornado is going to spin one way or the other has to do with tornadoes start spinning because you tilt horizontal vorticity and pick it up and turn it vertically. So whichever way that was spinning before you tilted it upright is the way the tornado is going to spin. Vorticity, for those that don't know, that's just the fluid dynamics term for the spinning motion of a fluid.
And in tornadoes, you can get where they have opposite effects. You can have tornadoes where the eye of the tornado, for lack of a better word, the eye of the tornado is a low pressure system, and you can have another situation in which that is the high pressure system, and that will have unique effects to the different characteristics and qualities of those tornadoes, of those separate tornadoes.
Yeah.
I've never met a flat earther that even understands what the Coriolis force is, or how it's applied, why it's applied to Earth. Their understanding of the Coriolis force is Earth turn under thing. That's it, right? Like they take the tweet by Neil deGrasse Tyson when he said that he was talking about an American football match, and he said that the winning field goal was likely caused by a 1/8 inch of a deflection to the right imparted by the Coriolis force. Imparted by Earth's rotation, right? Now, flat earthers take that and they say, well, Neil deGrasse Tyson said that Earth rotated under a football. No, that's not what Neil deGrasse Tyson said. He said that the Coriolis force imparted a 1/8 of an inch deflection to the right, which based on, it going from, I think it was south to north at a certain angle, at a certain latitude, he did the maths and found that, it would deflect ahead of the Earth's rotation by a tiny, tiny amount. But that's not the same as the Earth just rotating underneath something. Like I said, for instance, the Coriolis force will, if you fire something from the equator north that's ballistic, the Coriolis force the Coriolis effect will impart a force that makes it drift ahead of the rotation because it's conserving its momentum from a faster linear speed. But flat earthers don't understand that. They just think that the Coriolis force means that you go up in a hot air balloon and the Earth should rotate underneath you until New York arrives, which
Yeah.
Who are we kidding? They can't spell force. So.
True. That's right.
He brings up that tweet by Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I think he seemed surprised that I was like unimpressed that he knew this tweet. Like I just got a Twitter like 2 weeks ago. Like I don't pay. Neil deGrasse Tyson seems like he's cool. I've actually got to meet him once. That was
Oh,
lovely.
nice.
But like I got to go to a taping of Star Talk. It was really really cool.
Wow.
My opinion on Neil deGrasse Tyson is this right here. He is probably the most well-known physicist out there.
Yeah.
But by no means is he the smartest one out there, and he doesn't make that claim.
No.
He is a science educator, he is a science presenter, and he's damn good at the job he does. Outside of that, there are astrophysicists and there are geophysicists that stay locked behind closed doors doing work that have no interest on being on TV to do anything. He's a very charismatic person, and we are blessed to have him as a science presenter on this earth right here. And make fun of flat earthers all you want.
The only issue with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and maybe people like Bill Nye, and kind of any science communicator really, is that they have to dumb down what they are saying. And sometimes it's the case that they will dumb it down so much that it loses part of the context, which can then be misinterpreted.
And so if you take what they say, right, how they explain it to you as, oh, that is the set in stone science fact, that you're gonna go to bad places. So you've got to reading the book by Neil deGrasse Tyson or listening to Star Talk is not a replacement for a degree in astrophysics. You just don't cover the same thing. And science communication isn't the same thing as like how I talk about science on my channel is different than how I like write about science when I'm writing a paper to try to get it published in a peer-reviewed journle, because I'm talking to a very different audience, right? So who your audience is really matters. Understanding a Neil deGrasse Tyson's tweet does not a physics degree make.
No. Right, let's listen to more dumb.
Okay. Yes.
So you get a turntable, right? Or like a pottery wheel, right? Okay. So you get it spinning at a constant rate. You put a bowl, right? And at first, the water might splat and fill that bowl with water, put it on the rotating pottery wheel. Okay. At first, some of that water is going to splash out, but as that whole body spins up to speed, it will make a parabolic shape and be constant, the whole thing moving at the speed of the table, not at a relative motion.
That's not what happens with a blender.
Exactly. No shit.
Cool.
No shit, right?
Yeah, because again, a
blender has
not
friction.
A blender. Yeah, a blender also has an outside that has friction, and there's so much.
Well, and the thing that's spinning the fluid is inside the fluid. That's the difference here between if I put a whole bucket of water on a rotating table and I move the whole thing together versus if I try to stir it. Right? These are different things.
Yeah.
Different things are different.
And you just said what I said earlier, and I didn't realize you were going to come to that same conclusion in this debate. Once you get it going long enough, when you have 4 billion years of the Earth turning and friction pulling atom by atom, or I guess molecule by molecule in this situation, when you have the Earth pulling molecules at the surface, which are pulling molecules above it, and so forth, all the way to the top of the atmosphere, given enough time, you will have an essentially static atmosphere to the surface of the Earth. In other words, from an outside point of view, they would see not just the Earth rotating, but the atmosphere rotating as well. On the surface, we don't see that because we are rotating on the surface with the atmosphere. But from an outside perspective, you would absolutely see the atmosphere turning with the Earth.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's absolutely what happens with a rotating table.
Okay, but not with a blender. So when a blender spins, okay, so the Earth has topography. It would blend the atmosphere, which is actually what mainstream science teaches, that we have a Coriolis effect. So you, right now, saying the atmosphere moves as one cohesive body, you're what's called a Coriolis denier. You are.
There we have it. That's one of his favorite claims. We're all Coriolis deniers, Maddie, because we actually know what the Coriolis is.
I love this idea that, like, okay, on a planetary scale, yes, the atmosphere is moving with the Earth. If you look locally, that you can have wind. These two things can happen at the same time. And I don't know what his point is. I don't get it. And no, I'm sorry, dude, but mountains don't act like blenders.
No.
Yeah, and even that was the point I was going to bring up. You know, the Earth could be smooth as a baby's butt, and still,
Yeah.
given enough time, it's going to cause the atmosphere to rotate as a static body with with the surface of the Earth. Mountains, hills, grass, land, water doesn't fucking matter. There's the concept of friction that we know to be true that will occur no matter what. Unless it's a frictionless surface, which the Earth would not be, since those don't actually exist. Since there's no frictionless surface, it will pull the localized atmosphere around it, and the localized atmosphere around the surface of the Earth will pull at the atmosphere just above that's not attached to the Earth. And given enough time, it will become static with itself.
Yeah, so a really useful tool in studying climate is to do like a climate model of the Earth if there was no land. So just make it a whole ocean Earth, and spin up the atmosphere and kind of see what happens. So like that's, you know, that idea of like what happens if we remove the topography. The weather gets a lot simpler, you know, so it's easier to understand long-term behavior of the climate if you take away the friction, most of the friction at the surface. Obviously, there's still some, but if you have a relatively smooth surface, say like a constant ocean, yeah, the dynamics get a lot simpler, but you still get an atmosphere that behaves fundamentally the same.
Exactly.
Okay.
Denying mainstream science and what mainstream science says. So, do you know that?
I'm an atmospheric scientist. I'm not a Coriolis denier. Coriolis force is absolutely real. And as a whole, the atmosphere is moving with planet Earth, and then variations are atmospheric circulation and winds. But we're not here to talk about general atmospheric circulation driven by I mean, we can do that if you want. If you want to talk about thermally driven atmospheric circulation and how the Coriolis force affects that, we absolutely can. But you're completely misunderstanding if you think that what I just said is against mainstream science.
No, it is. You just said Coriolis force is real, and then you said the atmosphere
No, it
moves
is.
with.
Gosh.
My God, this is what
I'm a flat
mind,
earther.
right?
What you said is against mainstream science.
Yeah.
It is.
Hey,
Trust.
Here is a guy
trust
who
you.
struggles to know the difference between breakfast and the purple crayon, telling an actual atmospheric scientist, studying for her PhD, that she is wrong about the Coriolis. It blows my mind. He can't even define what the Coriolis force is or how it is imparted. You know, I've been trying to get this across to flat earthers for so long, and I think Dr. Clive Wells in the chat may have misheard maybe what I'm saying. Like, you don't have a Coriolis force just acting on you if you're still. That's not how it works. You have to be moving position. Like, hurricanes are formed because the air that is traveling, like if it's in the northern hemisphere, as the air is traveling towards the equator, it's deflected to the left, but the air above it, which is moving the other way, is deflected to the right, which causes a circular. It's because the air is moving from one position with a linear velocity to another. And it's the same with any object, right? You can be at the equator where technically there isn't a Coriolis force applied, but as soon as you fire a projectile from the equator, which has a linear velocity of about 1,000 miles an hour, to the north, for instance, into an area that has a linear velocity that is less than 1,000 miles an hour, the Coriolis force is applied to that object because it conserves its momentum from one area of linear velocity to the other. That projectile is still going to the east at 1,000 miles an hour, but it's now over a part of the Earth that is only going to the east at 800 miles an hour. So it's going to deflect to the right with a 200 mile an hour, speed. That they don't understand, and tell us people that know what we're talking about that we are denying mainstream science when it hurts my brain.
Yeah, this hurts my brain. And I am about, sorry, my husband, who loves me very much and is wonderful, just brought me curly fries.
Thank you. Awesome. Anyone that brings you curly flies should be awarded.
Exactly. I am about to misspeak. He's going to ask me to define Coriolis, and I'm just going to go straight to centrifugal for reasons. I don't know why. But
The Earth. Now, those are actually contradicting terms, so I'm going to need
They
you.
are not.
Can you stop interrupting me, please? So I'm going to need you to please define what Coriolis is.
Coriolis is a force which acts on a rotating fluid. Easiest way to think about it is if you have a bead, you put it on a bike spoke, you spin the bike spoke.
yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm kind of embarrassed at this point because I misspeak.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
also really mad.
yeah, you've just been told that that you're going against mainstream science, and you've kind of misunderstood the point that Nathan was trying to make, which is fine. You're talking to a flat earther. Yeah. It's hard on the brain, but you're still right in what you're saying. You're just not really giving him a definition of the Coriolis force and what it is and why it happens. He doesn't understand. He just thinks a thing leaves the ground, therefore it's Coriolis and the Earth has to turn underneath it if the Earth is rotating. But that's not Coriolis. There's so much more to it. There's, like I said, there's the conservation of momentum when traveling north-south. There, you still get an east to west effect of Coriolis that is either a deflection to the sky or towards the ground. And so you do get Coriolis in every direction, which is why a pendulum will rotate, depending on the latitude that you're at. But the main, it's not what they think it is. It's just not in any way what they think it is.
Right.
Oh, wrong one.
So what happens for Earth system, right, is here in the northern hemisphere where I live, the Coriolis force causes air to move. It's to the right of its own motion, right? And this happens, again, something has to be about 1,000 kilometers across to notice the Coriolis, to notice Earth's rotation. You also have to be north of about 10 degrees latitude because Coriolis increases from 0 at the equator to its maximum at the North Pole, with the beta plane approximation being a maximum at the equator and goes to 0 at the pole. But that's important for weather forecasting, not so much for what we're talking about. It's kind of in the details. So that is why hurricanes, northern hemisphere hurricanes, are always going to rotate in a counterclockwise direction. Southern hemisphere hurricanes always rotate in a clockwise direction. Tornadoes, however, because they are much smaller, can rotate either clockwise or counterclockwise.
Are you done?
Answered your question.
No, you didn't at all. So you said it's a force that affects rotating bodies, and then you use the beads. Please don't interrupt me. I know you want to talk. Okay? I can see your mouth like start to open and then you close.
I didn't say anything.
Like, you literally didn't say anything like at all. And he said, "Please don't interrupt me." He's just been waiting to call moderator, hasn't he? Moderator.
Was it like just chill? You're gonna get to talk when I'm done talking. Maybe get a pen and then take some notes so that while I'm talking, you can respond
doesn't need to take
after.
Notes.
That would be the polite thing to do.
I really didn't need to take notes.
Is it a force that acts on rotating bodies? Okay, cool story, but very vague. Then you went on to describe not Coriolis, but centrifugal force, ladies and gentlemen. This lady who claims to be studying her PhD said the beads, when you spin the wheel, the beads going outward is example of Coriolis. No, it's not at all whatsoever. That's evidence of centrifugal force. You don't even know your forces. I'm sorry, I don't think you're qualified for this debate. How many times?
You, an atmospheric scientist, are not qualified for the debate about Coriolis, Maddie.
Clearly not. I'm just gonna sit here and eat my.
And yeah, I mean,
right now.
you did kind of flub up the centrifugal force in that debate. That's okay, because even with the centrifugal force present, pushing the bead to the outside of the rotating merry-go-round or whatever it is, there, if you were to take a camera and place it on, the direct line of sight, let's say you had one camera on the outside, you had one camera on the inside, the bead is on the inside, and you begin the motion of the bead going to the outside. What you won't get, because of the Coriolis, is the bead will not follow a straight line from one camera to the next. It will have a deflection. This deflection needs to be explained. It's explained by being on a rotating body. That is why there is a deflection, is that it's on a rotating body.
Yeah.
Have you tested Earth yourself, and where, and with what equipment?
Okay, so first, if I misspoke and did centrifugal, then I misspoke.
No, you still got it wrong. It's centrifugal, not centrifugal. Okay.
Which is what I just said.
It's not centrifugal. It's centrifugal. Right. The thing is, there he screwed up.
Not centrifugal.
He thought that you said centripetal, right? But then halfway through trying to criticize you, realized that you actually did say centrifugal and not centripetal, and just dumbass.
Centrifugal. You're talking about two different forces. You still haven't got it right, okay? Just so you know.
We're now going to give Maddie a chance to talk.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Thank you,
James
James.
doing some rare moderating.
So one, Coriolis is not something which affects rotating bodies. It's a force which affects objects that are on rotating bodies. Important difference there.
What objects does it affect?
Nathan, I do want to give her a chance to respond to all the points that you had made.
She'd be a little specific. She's super vague, James. I'm trying to get her. What objects?
Right, but there were points where, for example, when she asked you what law of thermodynamics, my idea here is let's just give her a chance to respond to all the points you had made. I promise we'll give you a chance to ask that question that you have right now.
Okay. So, as I said when I was explaining hurricanes versus tornadoes, Coriolis is going to affect objects on rotating bodies that are of a similar size. You can do scale analysis there to determine what the appropriate size is for the strength of the Coriolis. So of a similar size to the body that is rotating. So that's, again, this idea of what you feel when you're doing donuts versus if you were driving around Utah. So then I would like to get to your second question, which was, what have I personally done to test that the Earth is a globe? Right. I have personally shot a laser at the moon. That was very fun. That's not going to work. One, that wouldn't work at all if we hadn't been to the moon, if the Earth wasn't a globe, if we didn't understand these things, because we shot a laser at the moon, hit a mirror that was left there by the Apollo missions, and it bounced back. It was very cool. That was with NASA Goddard.
Maddie, weren't you afraid you were going to blow up the moon, though?
So afraid. That green laser.
Yeah.
So strong. It's definitely going to blow it up.
You had it set to stun, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. Well,
Phaser's always set to stun. Safety first at NASA.
Yeah.
So I've done that. Two,
in fact, do you want to tell people a little bit about that experience of firing the laser?
Sure. So I got to spend a summer. I was doing a undergraduate research project in collaboration with NASA Goddard. It was on the LOLA, the Lunar Orbital Laser Altimeter. It's been orbiting the moon since 2009. And so I was at NASA Goddard for a summer working on this research project. And one night, like my supervisor was like, you wanna go shoot a laser at the moon? And I was like, yes, I do.
Wait, do what?
Do I want to do what now? Yes, of course I do. So we went out to a site, and the purpose of this, the purpose is to precisely measure the distance from the Earth to the moon as a calibration for instruments. So you do this periodically. And so we have a very high powered laser. It was green. You aim it at the mirrors. I am so sorry, I'm forgetting the specific name.
Retroreflectors.
Thank you, retroreflectors. You aim it at the retroreflectors left by the Apollo missions, and so it bounces straight back, and then you measure the time it took to get that signal to go to the moon and come back. That time tells you how far away the moon is, very, 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 very precisely. I possibly should have brought up, because that's something that I've personally done. I was personally there, but like that undergraduate research project, we mapped the moon, all of it. Turns out sphere. Um,
Amazing.
also,
Yeah, and we actually see more than 50% of the moon because of the way the moon has this gyration.
Yeah.
Like at some points it's slightly turned to the right from one perspective and slightly turned to the left on a month or two later. And this allows us to see slightly more than just 50% of the moon. Why do we not see those parts on every night? Why is it cyclical as to when we can see some portions of the moon but not others, and then at another point in the cycle we can see another portion of the moon and not the original portion that we saw? Most of the moon is visible all the time to us, but because of these gyrations, because of this wobble that occurs, we do actually see more. Why do we not see more if it's just a plate in the sky that always gives us its entire face? That's one of the arguments they have. Why do we never see the back of the moon? It's so convenient to not see the back of the moon because of because it's tidally locked with the Earth, which is something that occurs with all moons, by the way, given enough time. So once we see this, once we see this gyration, they don't explain why is there a portion of their flat plate that their light in the sky that for somehow or another, I don't know, maybe they can explain how a light has shadows, but for whatever reason, we get this different, viewpoint of the moon at different times, and they can't explain that. Like they just cannot, they are so lost when it comes to the moon. Who put the retroreflectors there? Because I can't shoot a green laser to any part of the moon and get a response back that's as strong as it is when you hit the retroreflector. I mean, there's just so much that they just deny, and just when they deny it, they accept it as, their denial is rebuttal to the argument.
right. And just also very simply thinking about tidally locked, right? Like, why in the asteroid belt are there empty bands corresponding to whole number ratios of tidally locked like orbits between Jupiter and the sun, right? Like you can,
why do Lagrange points exist? Why do
right.
Lagrange points exist? Why can we look at Jupiter and see collections of asteroids and gravitational Lagrange points, and the asteroids, once they get in there, they're just due to the geometry of the solar system, they become locked in that place. It requires too much energy for them to accept or to escape that Lagrange point. And they don't have the energy because nobody gives them the energy. Energy must be conserved. You can't just generate enough energy to leave something once you're inside of it. It's like, how can you get to the top of a pool if you don't swim to the top, if you don't put energy into yourself to get out of that, the bottom of that well that you're being held down by all the water. If you don't if you don't input energy into your body to get out of that well, you're always going to reside in it. We take pictures of the atmosphere around, or the space around Mars. What do we see? We see asteroids collecting in Lagrange points.
Yeah.
While hurricanes are not my specific field of research, hurricanes would not form if the Earth wasn't rotating. Everything that I know about weather doesn't work if the Earth isn't rotating. So if the Earth wasn't rotating, the Great Arctic Cyclone of 2012 would not have negatively impacted the September sea ice extent from that year, because we wouldn't have had a TPV, tropopolar vortex, which are only going to form because of the strength of the Coriolis over the pole. So I guess my short answer to your question is, what have I personally done to test that the Earth is round? Literally my entire academic career depends on that being true, or else we couldn't forecast the weather, or else we couldn't tropopolar vortices.
Look at Nathan just like waving his hands around and stuff, like just like.
And like what I'm struggling with is like the things that I'm saying, like tropopolar vortices and Rossby wave breaks. That's a paper I read today. These are things that don't exist if we're not on a rotating sphere, but the amount of time and energy it would take to explain to any non-specialist what those things are and why they're important, like it would take so long, let alone to someone like Nathan who's uninterested in hearing what I have to say, right? Like that's, I think that's one of the real struggles that I had. I guess that's one of the things that I found kind of, I was hoping going into this debate to at least have some honest communication.
Oh, you're so naive. Yeah. Oh, bless.
You know, I used something you said, Maddie, last night, and I wanna give you credit for this, because I moderated a debate on another channel last night where the guy was very intellectually dishonest, but his intellectual dishonesty was a very good debate tactic, because he put his opponent in a corner where he couldn't really get out of that corner due to the intellectual dishonesty. It's a great debate tactic, but it means nothing for a conversation between two intelligent individuals. You start having a conversation like that between two academics, and the moment one of them begins being intellectually dishonest, the conversation's over. I mean, they're just not there they're not going to continue the conversation on with you until you admit, you know, that you're being intellectually dishonest for whatever reasons. Maybe it's a bias that's pre-built in, which in the case of the flat earth, I can see that as the reason why they are so intellectually dishonest, because they have to maintain the bias that they have built into their entire belief system. Great debate tactic, not good for conversation.
Right.
Yeah. So if you ever, if you get to debate another flat earther, Maddie, will you come out with a different tactic, do you think?
I think I will definitely be prepared with some simpler examples. That would be the main difference. But I do think that the tactic of because my only tactic going into this was, we're going to pick a point and stick to it. Right. And if you want to interrupt me and go off on whatever have you, that's fine. But I'm going to come back to this point. I probably could have been a little firmer on that. But
like you said, you thought you were coming into an intellectually honest conversation. I
would like to point out the debate I had about whether or not Bigfoot exists was perfectly cordial, and I pushed back pretty hard on some of this guy's points, and he was like accepting of those, and like I'd get a beer with that dude, you know.
Yeah. Hey team, which flat earther do you think we should subject Maddie to?
Rad Vlad.
Oh God, no! I couldn't do that to her.
No, I like. Hey, hold on. Rad Vlad's in the chat right now. I like Rad.
Hi,
Vlad.
Rad.
He's my homie.
He's not too bad.
He's my homie.
Yeah.
I've been working with him to be a better presenter of his evidence, and also, you know, to have better etiquette.
Evidence.
When it's no, the evidence part I'm not going to coach him on. That's him. That's his belief. He should come up with his own evidence but yeah, being able to present it better and not devolving into unnecessary insults and whatnot. Brad Vlad's he's an all right dude in my book. So
could you imagine Maddie debating someone like,
you're a loser, but whatever.
Could you imagine Maddie debating someone like Riley?
I wouldn't put her up against Riley. Riley's not intellectually.
You ever heard of
honest
Sleeping
enough.
Warrior?
It would be just as bad as Nathan Thompson.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Sleeping Warrior, Maddie?
I've heard you mention him before.
Yeah. This wait, hold on. This guy.
I'm a dumb flat earther, and I don't understand
this guy.
science.
Yes. Okay. Yes. He was the guy that he took a deflated soccer ball out into his backyard.
No.
No, that's
that
Dell. That's this guy.
Oh, okay.
No.
There's so many of them.
Sorry, Dell. The Earth isn't a deflated soccer ball, but nice try.
So that's a field of my research. So if the Earth wasn't rotated, if the Earth wasn't a sphere, these things wouldn't be true. So Nathan, I do have a question for you.
No, I got to respond to all that. You talk for like 3 minutes, okay? And then you can ask your question. So
right, interrupting her.
James, can I respond?
Hold on. He answered. Hold on. Maddie answered your question, Nathan. Like, that's why she talked for 3 minutes, was answering the question you asked. You don't get to say, well, here's my question. And then after she answers, you don't get to say, well, she just talked for 3 minutes. Let me ask a question now. No, now it's her turn to ask a question. And you can spend 3 minutes going on your grandstanding soapbox that you always do. You can have your 3 minutes, and then you can ask a question. Etiquette. That's all you got to learn.
So I just want to say thank you, everyone, because Maddie now has 815 subscribers. It's
my
showing
goodness,
us 715
Hey.
because
Thank you.
YouTube has gone, oh, she's getting so many subscribers. And it took 100 off. I think it's got to confirm those, but they will get put back on. But I've been watching it, and it's gone up to 815. So thank you, everyone, for subscribing to Maddie. Binge her material. It's funny. It's informative. It's easy to listen to. I think she's a great science communicator.
Thank
Give
you.
Nathan a chance to ask that because I think he had a clarifying question that I rejected earlier. So I'll at least give you that, Nathan.
I asked how she tested Earth. She said, I pinged the moon, which doesn't prove the floor curves at all. Also, just so you know, you said you hit the mirrors that NASA left there when they were doing donuts in the rover 60 years ago, but can't go back and talk to the president with a turn dial telephone.
Irrelevant.
What a joke. But
They
the point
didn't.
of that is
I
they
love
pinged the
that.
moon in the
I
early
love that.
60s.
Hold on. This is how dumb these people are, right?
So much wrong.
They don't understand that a telephone is simply a receiver and a transmitter, right? You have a point on the phone where you talk that receives your voice and transmits it down the line, and you have a point on the phone that receives the line and converts that into audio signals for you to listen to. Everything in between can be anything at all. Just because President Nixon was sitting at I think it was Nixon, right? Was sitting at the office speaking with the people on the moon doesn't mean that there was a goddamn telephone line that ran from the White House to the moon. That's not how that works, Nathan. Stop bringing that shit up.
Yeah. Also, I love the doing donuts reference. That's great. And like, I mean, we can talk about how NASA's budget changed from manned to unmanned exploration so that we could go to different places. Like that's because we've had the Mercury mission that went out to the messenger mission that went to Mercury. There we go. That's the right one. Juno, that's at Jupiter. Multiple missions to Mars. We've had launches, not NASA, but other places launched to Venus, right? We've been lots of places. Yeah, Pluto, absolutely.
Neptune, Uranus. We've been to all of them. We pictured the vortexes on the poles of I think it's Neptune, right? Is that where the hexagonal vortexes are? Is it Neptune that that planet is on, or is that Uranus?
I think that's Neptune.
Neptune, okay.
Yeah. Oh, like the weather on Jupiter is the coolest thing on planet Earth. By the way, if you want to talk about Coriolis, Jupiter spins real fast. That's why it has more bands, by the way. Earth has 3 major atmospheric cells, Hadley-Farrell polar. Jupiter has lots because the number of atmospheric cells that you have of those bands that you can see so clearly on Jupiter is directly related to how fast you're spinning. It's also why the Great Red Spot's been around for so long. It's just a storm, but it's fed by Jupiter's rotation.
By Jupiter's extremely fast rotation.
Yeah, because it spins super fast and it's really big.
Really big.
So big.
I read an interesting paper about what if they could turn Jupiter into a second sun, which with the mass of Jupiter, it's not too far away from what would cause nuclear fusion to start happening. That was quite interesting. Anyway, let's get back to more stupid.
Before the mirror was up there, did you know that?
I do know that. What we measured specifically was the time it took to get there and come back. So you can't get that reflection, the precision without a mirror. So you can hit the moon with a laser without a mirror. You can't get a signal back without a mirror.
Yeah, but you assume
if he needs a real world example of this, we can use weather radar to pretty much detect where a weather system is, but we can't use it to determine precisely where an airplane is in the sky.
Of space to test.
Sorry, Phoenix was being weird there, team. I couldn't pause it. Do you want to say that again?
Oh, I was just saying that it's the same thing. It's the same concept as saying we can use a weather radar for pretty precise measurements of a weather system, but it would not be a precise measurement to find the distance to, let's say, an airplane. You wouldn't be able to use the same radar system to determine just because of the precision that's involved with like an actual radar that's used by an airport or by the military. They have higher precision because they need to be able to localize that plane down to a pinpoint. you know, so they can fire weapons at it from distances, so that they can track where it's at. Whereas a weather system, they're using a type of radar that's very much that has a low precision, but it's great precision for weather systems, because weather systems are really big. There's not the need for being as precise on the reflection, the radar that's being reflected back. So yes, we can measure the moon, the distance to the moon, relatively with any radar or any electromagnetic signals, but we can measure it only with precision using the using a laser and the retroreflectors. That gets us down to, you know, probably meters away. You know, we can tell with precision of several meters the distance to the moon.
It's even better than that. It's insanely precise. Probably not at centimeter, but like sub-meter accuracy.
Really? I didn't know it was that getting that close.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
Wow.
So like,
Right.
yeah, sorry, go on. We can just play. I was gonna delay the pain by talking about satellites. So
Oh, satellites is always fun when talking to Nathan. He really gets annoyed when you talk about satellites.
Come on, guys.
Right.
They're satelloons. Every satellite's a
Satelloon,
satelloon.
yeah,
You guys know that.
obviously.
So it's all based on assumptions. Now, on top of that, that was your first point. Then you said your second, testing Earth and proving it's a globe, was everything you know about hurricanes wouldn't work on a flat Earth. Now, I have to ask you this.
Mhm.
Do you know what an electromagnetic wake is? And if you do, what is it?
Yeah, Nathan, you don't know what electromagnetic wake is, because, team, I've been watching him on social media the past few days, and the amount of people he has blocked for asking him what an electromagnetic wave is.
That should be the only question anybody ever asks Nathan moving forward until he fucking answers that question. What is an electromagnetic wake? Where's the proof that this even exists? Where are the scientific papers on electromagnetic wakes? I kind of understand, like, I think he got that from and I think I said it wrong. I think it's Cherenkov radiation. I think somebody corrected me earlier. I think he got that term from that concept, but what he's using it to describe is he's saying that the sun itself is pushing on one side of the hurricane, causing it to spin. So on a flat Earth, the sun moves from east to west. And as it moves from east to west, if you could imagine, you know, using your hand instead of the sun inside of a bathtub, when you're pushing your hand through the bathtub, the vortexes on each side of your hand will spin in opposite directions. Because when you're pushing your hand through that, what ends up happening is you're imparting a force on the inside part of the water, causing it to move faster than the outside part of the water. And that's what I think he's actually trying to say. But no, there's no evidence of any of this. There never has been. It's something that he just made up so that his worldview remains consistent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
An electromagnetic wake. I am going to go ahead and let you explain what that is.
So you don't know what it is. So of course you don't understand how hurricanes, it's not in your textbook. They're not teaching you how they actually work.
You don't understand.
Of course you're going to say, well, I don't have to test Earth. They just ping time the moon. And then I know a lot about weather because I read a lot of books. But you don't even know what an electromagnetic wake is, Maddie.
So why don't you tell me what an electromagnetic wake is?
Okay, why don't we talk?
Maddie, at this point, did you know he was talking bullshit?
Yes.
So you want...
And here he says... I believe it's here he says, and you stopped it right before he finished. I think he says, let's talk about this later. No, that's not what she brought that up. She asked you a question, answer the question. You brought up the concept of electromagnetic wakes. Mm-hmm. Therefore, she has never heard of it. She's simply asking you to qualify your assertion right now. Explain what you mean so that she can accurately respond to it. You cannot do that because you pulled it out of your ass. You pulled it out of your ass and you said, you don't know about this. Okay, explain it to me. Okay, for another day I will. Another day. Yeah, I'm not your Google. But then again, at the same time, he says, never trust Google. You only get your information from Google. But in that moment, it's, I'm not your Google.
Right. I also like to point out that I've, in fact, never learned about hurricanes from a textbook. I mostly learned about them from forecasts.
So actual data.
data, yeah, like real atmospheric data. And my friend who he's super cool. His name's Addison. He drives mobile radars out to hurricane landfall sites to collect high resolution radar data of hurricanes.
So no,
Has he
just
never
reading out
seen the movie
textbooks then.
Twister? Tell him to be careful. Go watch Twister and be careful.
Dude, of course I've seen the movie Twister. First of all, I grew up
Not
in
you,
Oklahoma.
your weird friend that's driving radars to
Oh.
tornadoes and stuff.
This is what we do. This is what being
I
a
would love-
meteorology student is.
Yeah,
We go
I'm
storm
right there with you. I'm in
Yeah.
North Texas, so I'm right there with you in
Yeah.
I was about to say Hurricane Tornado Alley. And as someone who spent a lot of time in country trailers, I've seen the destructive power of tornadoes on unimpeding land, basically out in the country. Why you see most of this happen in rural areas is because there's no buildings to mitigate the building up of pressures and winds and whatnot. When
Actually,
you get
that's
to
not strictly true, but
okay, go ahead. Correct me. Go ahead, correct me.
yeah. So whether or not a tornado is going to hit a populated area versus an unpopulated, like it's equally likely to hit Oklahoma City as it is the middle of nowhere, right? But there's more the middle of nowhere than there is Oklahoma City. So the presence of the city doesn't affect probabilities.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was just always, I guess, I'm not a climate scientist, so I do accept the fact that I can be wrong, unlike a flat earther. But
you can be wrong
at the same time.
How dare you be wrong on my stream? Get out.
Anybody that's lived in the country and seen a tornado come through and tear even a house apart, it's to know that there's somebody actively driving radars out to that. You're like, be careful, be careful.
If you want, dude, I was on a field campaign to study tornadoes. So we were out in the field for 2 weeks, driving mobile radars around looking for tornadoes. I filmed all of it. It's up on my channel.
Oh my goodness!
If
I gotta go
wanna
out
watch
there with
me
you one
chase
day.
storms. Yeah.
No,
I would
team,
love
you
to
can't
go out there and
near to a
chase them
tornado.
with you.
You'd get like just sucked into it, man. You know.
I am light enough. You do have to weigh me down, by the way. We're gonna have to anchor me to something.
Well, so you should just come with me with the radar truck, right? Because the radar truck is several $1 million. So we're definitely not allowed to get it too close to the store. My whole job on that field campaign was making sure we had a safe exit path for the radar truck because we're in like rural Kansas and rural Oklahoma. So it's a lot of dirt roads. We want to make sure we can get safely away from the storm. So we're usually camped out southeast of it because they're normally traveling like in a northwest kind of northeast trajectory. You'd think I would be able to not flip east and west at this point in my atmospheric science career. And yet here we are.
You've dealt with a flat earther recently. The brain damage that you have suffered, it might take some time to recover from, you know?
It might take some time to recover.
Okay. Right. We're probably gonna go for about 20 minutes more. We're gonna finish the back and forth part, and then we'll go over some super chats. There's some questions there from Maddie. We're not going to cover the entire debate because it is extremely long. But let's get on with
painful.
Yeah, and very painful. Let's get on with the back and forth here because there is some extra dirt coming up
later because I got a lot of other things to cover. Like for example, you said it has to be true or we couldn't forecast. Do you know the forecast is wrong like 50% of the time?
I love that.
I travel
like
around full time.
of the time.
I travel around full time looking at the forecast, and trust me, they're not always right. Are you going to say they're always right?
Trust him.
Trust him.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at him. Is that a face of someone
Ignore
you
the data.
trust?
He goes to places and looks at the weather app on his phone. So therefore, he knows more about the accuracy of forecasts than I
do. You should have asked him how forecasts are done. That would have been funny.
Oh, I should have. That would have been great.
I'm going to say they're always right. I'm saying
okay, great. So they're wrong. So basically you're saying if we didn't know the Earth was a globe, we wouldn't be able to get the forecast wrong sometimes. Like, that's your argument.
So calm.
This is a joke, guys. Maddie, where have you...
Maddie, you're so calm. I could...
I love that. That probably triggered him more that you weren't being emotionally responsive.
Yeah. Oh no, he gets so mad. He like rage quits in the Q&A. It was a whole thing. And I'm convinced it's all because I didn't react to his antics.
We've got someone in the chat that says, maybe you could let Maddie know that I'm 100% willing to drive one of those armored trucks into a tornado. I would risk it for science as I can't do any good math, but I will kamikaze myself for the cause.
Oh,
Let
you
me tell you guys something.
Yourself.
An
Professional
armored
sword
truck.
chasers are very safe.
Yeah, an armored truck inside of a sufficiently sized tornado is nothing more than a feather in a gust of wind. It would still pick it up. It would still move it. These wind forces that we're talking about are not, they're extreme. There's reasons why people die in tornadoes.
Yeah.
You tested Earth and found it curving in all directions.
So I'm going to go back to the point you said earlier, which was you asked me, did I know that the forecasts are wrong? So let's take hurricane trajectories. That's a good one. By we, the National Weather Service, forecasts the location of a hurricane 3 to 5 days out with about 90% accuracy. So do you want to go with that that's incorrect? If we look at
90% accuracy, so you're saying that they're wrong sometimes.
Everything is wrong.
Wow, this completely ruins your whole argument.
90% of the time.
Which is okay, Maddie. I'm not gonna sit here and talk about how
I do want to. Nathan, hold on one second. If you do ask her a question, in terms of like
I didn't ask
whether or not they're wrong.
She's talking to herself.
No, you did ask something to the effect of, so they are wrong sometimes. I do want to give her a chance to respond.
They are wrong.
Yeah.
I just said they are.
What were you thinking there, Maddie?
It was he didn't ask me. What he said was, I didn't ask her a question. She's just talking to herself. And it's like, you made a specific claim that I'm addressing.
You literally.
And I want to say, did anybody else notice how quickly he abandoned his 50% right 50% of the time to jump on your, so it's only right 90% of the time. Like, he didn't even stick to his guns. He immediately saw that there was a 10% that you said without any data given. You just said that there's 10%, they're wrong 10% of the time. And immediately it was like, oh, well, forget my comment of 50% of the time they're wrong. You just admitted that 10%, so they're wrong. Come on, Nathan. Have a little bit of integrity.
Yeah.
Team, come on. You know better than that.
Right.
This is Nathan
I know better
Thompson.
than to ask that question.
Yeah, she conceded 10% of the time, and so you had brought up that they are wrong that 10% of the time as a response to her pointing out the 90%.
Funny thing is, flat earthers are wrong 100% of the time.
That is correct.
And if you look over,
that's 150% correct, team. Well done.
Overall, at just general weather forecasting, numerical weather models have an accuracy of, I think it's in the 70s for a 7-day forecast. If you look at how that's improved over the last few decades, so a great example would be the recent snowfall in Texas that was forecasted 7 days out that the snowfall was going to happen. So everything has errors, right? Everything has errors. Nothing is perfect, especially when we're predicting the future, right? But weather forecasting is incredibly good. And it wouldn't be if the Earth wasn't a rotating sphere.
And will only get better, Nathan.
Only get better.
What was that, team? Sorry?
I was saying, and she was saying, I'm sorry, I was just making an out loud comment. She said that it's exceptionally good at predicting weather, and I was like, and it's only going to get better. So even if we all concede to the fact that Maddie said that 90% of the time it's correct, in the future, 20, 30 years down in the future, it's going to be 95% of the time it's correct. And then 20, 30 years into the future, if that's 97% of the time, it will always be a percentage chance that they're going to get it wrong, but we're not going to go backwards in atmospheric science. We're only moving forward, and all this new information, all the new discoveries that we have, all the new techniques that we develop will only increase the accuracy of weather forecasts.
Yeah. Someone in the chat is where was it? Why is he wearing a security shirt? Yeah, a couple of people have asked, why is Nathan wearing a security shirt? Well, this is just an example of the type of person Nathan Thompson is. His trick at the moment is to wear a hat and a top that says security on, and to put a service dog harness on his dog so that he can go places without being questioned.
That makes me angry.
Yeah, me too. The service dog thing especially.
Yeah.
So forecasting eclipses is not my field, but
Oh yeah. What he did there was you were explaining weather, and he went, "Yeah, what about eclipses?" Without
What about
addressing anything that you
eclipses?
said. Yeah.
Because yeah, I was very confused. I got very thrown because we pivoted really fast.
Yeah, that's a flat Earth
Um,
tactic.
yeah.
One of the hardest things in the flat Earth debate is trying to keep the flat earther on a topic. They
Yeah.
just want to spew the thousands of bits of nonsense that they've read on Facebook. They just want to get every bit of it out, and
Mhm.
they don't want to have an actual conversation.
knowing when a lunar eclipse is going to happen, we do know that long time in advance.
Oh, okay, but are they wrong or are they right? You said you can't predict everything perfectly. But are
If
they
you
wrong?
want to talk,
Because they actually used the Soros cycle, which was way
Oh my
predates
God.
the globe model. Are you familiar with the Soros cycle?
if you want to talk about the differences in orbital mechanics versus fluid mechanics and why those are fundamentally different, we totally can.
Why can't you just answer a question? I asked you if you knew what the Soros cycle is. The answer is yes.
Interesting, Nathan. Yeah. Nathan's.
Well, I'd like to speak on this. Or go ahead.
Yeah, go
I'm
on,
sorry.
go on.
I'll talk after you.
No,
Well, I was just
you
going
have.
to speak. Okay, so the solar cycle and mini cycles, like the day cycle, for instance, we
Like,
can
Nathan,
ignore
what
the
you
solar
do is-
cycle and go directly to the day cycle, right? The sun going around the Earth 24 hours a day. You know, it takes 24 hours for the sun, relative to a person on the Earth, to see the sun approximately in the same position. We didn't need to know that the Earth goes around. We don't need to know the cosmic geometry, the solar geometry of our solar system. We don't need to know that to be able to look up and go, oh, look, it takes 24 hours to come back. Oh my God, it did it again. Oh my God, it did it. You know what? On the fourth day, I'm without even knowing the geometry of the solar system, I'm going to guess and predict that the sun will be in almost the exact same spot in 24 hours. Now, that doesn't mean that you're explaining that the geometry of the solar system. You're just explaining the cycles of the sun, the cycles of the moon. It wasn't until we had a better understanding of our solar system's geometry before we could say, this is why it's cyclical. Understanding a cycle is different than being able to predict a cycle. You can predict a cycle based on purely observations. To understand why those observations make sense require a deeper understanding. The deeper understanding is that the Earth goes around or that the sun goes around, or the moon goes around the Earth and the Earth goes around the sun.
One of those
every
ones,
so often during these cyclical, during these cycles, every so often you're going to get an alignment of the moon and the sun and the Earth all lined up, and that will give us a solar eclipse. Same thing with a lunar eclipse. Now we understand why the Soros cycle is the way it is.
The thing is, the Soros cycle can't predict the eclipses like accurately. Like we can predict using the heliocentric model, the time, the location, exactly. But the Soros cycle will say, well, it's probably going to be around here at about this time. It's right, but you can't use it for like a completely accurate prediction.
Well, and the point he's trying to make here is that if we can accurately predict eclipses, then we should be able to accurately predict the weather. Like that's the point he's trying to make. At least that's the best I could understand it. And that's a false dichotomy. That's orbital mechanics are not, turned out, chaotic systems. They're pretty.
In fact, they used to. What's crazy is they used to use like the farmer's almanac, right, to kind of predict at which way the weather is going to go over a month's period of time. They could look back and say, in the last 30 years we've seen this trend. And it's all documented within the Farmer's Almanac. But now we don't need the Farmer's Almanac to make those types of predictions, because now, given the advancements in science, we have a better understanding of weather systems and their effects on the immediate area. So we can we could actually do the weather predictions of today could lose all Farmer's Almanacs on the Earth and still make predictions on the weather based on weather systems, radar data, and whatnot, and just being able to extrapolate forward, given our understanding of weather systems. Had nothing to do with farmers' almanacs at that point.
Yeah, no, we don't use the farmer's almanac. No. That's not a thing.
Right. Now, I think we're nearly over with the back and forth bit, so let's get through this, because I do know listening to Nathan Thompson is an extremely painful thing.
Don't know what it is.
Nathan, what I'm okay with is after she finished, if you want to say that and you want to say, hey, I did ask a question earlier and you still haven't answered it, you only said this, that's okay. But I do want to give her a chance to respond because there is some interrupting here.
So again, if you want to talk about the difference between forecasting an eclipse versus forecasting the weather, I'm all to do that, but those are very different. In terms of your exact question of what a Soros cycle is, I don't know that term off the top of my head.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's how we predict eclipses, and they are accurate all the time, just so you know. Like, they've never predicted an eclipse and then have them be wrong when the prediction is, just so you know. Now, I have a question. Are sun rays parallel, or are they not parallel?
Parallel to what surface?
Parallel to each other. Are sun rays parallel to each other? Do they come down?
Sun rays. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I heard rise.
It's all good. Are sun rays parallel?
So sun rays are going to, the rays of the sun are, they're propagating radially outward. So very locally, they will appear, like, for what you and I can see, they will look parallel, but they're not strictly parallel.
So they are parallel, but they're not parallel.
That's what
she said was locally, they're going to appear to be straight. But if we think about this from the size
radially
of the
outwards
Earth,
means,
sun rays.
No, he doesn't understand that at all. His entire argument here is that, oh, well, we can see crepuscular rays, which is when rays like break through, sun rays break through the clouds and you can see it kind of shining down, right? But what he never says about those is that they change position based on where you are. I live in Scotland on the Firth of Forth, right? So there's a big river coming in from from the ocean, and there's mountains on either side. So we get like the most amazing cloud breaks around here. And as you drive along the coast of the Firth of Forth, you can watch those sun rays like change from going down at an angle to being straight to going the other way as you drive past them. Because like you said, it's a local phenomena, And if you try and trace those rays back to a point of origin, then the sun's literally just like 10,000 feet up, and that's not the case. So it's...
Yeah, and so this whole thing
emitted
one of the things I refused to do was he wanted me to give these simple yes or no answers to not yes or no questions. So like
he wants you to lose context.
Right. So are the sun's rays parallel? Like, well, no, because if you trace them backwards, you can trace it back to a point, right, the surface of the sun. But if you're talking about can you treat them as parallel mathematically when you're doing stuff in the Earth's atmosphere? Yeah, sure, absolutely. Because it's like those two things can both be true at the same time, guys.
Logic just doesn't work with flat earthers.
Outwards from the sun constantly, so there is an angle.
Do you know what crepuscular rays are?
Crepuscular rays, not off the top of my head. What are crepuscular rays?
Those are the rays that we get from the sun. They're not parallel. They're all converging to one point. You just said they were parallel locally, and that's what we observed, but it's not what we observed.
I guess train tracks converge to one point as well.
Yeah.
Parallel train tracks, because of the way they look from your perspective, and they get closer and closer together as they get further and further away. I guess they just converge to one point, Nathan. They're not parallel. Look at the observations. Jesus, that guy's such a fucking moron. Excuse my language, Maddie. I don't mean to cuss in front of you like that. I hope you're okay with it.
I'm sure she understands.
I was in the Navy, my guy.
Yeah.
I forgot. Nathan Thompson, you're a fucking idiot.
Ding. I've got a soundbite on my stream deck here of when the last time Team debated. It was when Team and I were debating Nathan Thompson and someone else, and Nathan wouldn't shut up. So Team said this:
"Shut the fuck up, Nathan."
And it's just a perfect response to every time Nathan opens his mouth. You don't understand Coriolis.
Shut the fuck up, Nathan.
Sun rays are parallel.
Shut the fuck up, Nathan.
Yeah, it works for everything that he ever says.
Do you know
real quick, I have to go in like 25 minutes.
Right. Okay. So I think we were just getting to the point now, near the end of the back and forth. So we'll just do a few more minutes, then we'll read some super chats. I do want to say again, Maddie, thank you for coming on. And guys, Maddie is at what's it now?
Not
854
enough because
subscribers.
she's not over 1,000, so it's not
No,
enough.
I think that we can get her to 1,000 through this stream and people watching it afterwards. I think we can get Maddie to 1,000 subs. So if you're watching it now, or if you're watching this in the future, please click on the link in the description, which will take you to Maddie's channel, Sciencesideup, and give her a subscribe.
Thanks, guys.
How you create crepuscular rays or
How do you-
duplicate them?
No.
There's 3 constituent parts you need.
Okay.
You need a localized light source. You need obstruction,
No, you don't.
such as the clouds. And you would need some sort of particulates in the air, like
No, you
water
don't.
vapor, aqueous particles, dust, that sort of thing. So you can't duplicate crepuscular rays with the sun that's 93 million miles bigger
Yes, you
than
can.
the Earth.
Yeah,
93
you
million
can.
miles away and
That's-
bigger than the
Absolutely
Earth. Just so
can.
you know, you need a small localized light.
Yeah, no. So okay, so
Okay.
like Fight said, as
I
you
would
approach these
really- I mean, if you-
crepuscular rays, they take on different geometries, and that's
Yeah.
because the idea of the rays converging to one point is the fact that you're looking at it from a perspective that where these parallel lines with distance will begin to look as if they converge to a point. However, so do train tracks, so do the roads, so do
Yeah.
hallways, so do everything else that's parallel. If you look down it, it will always will appear to converge to a point. However, go to that point where they appear to converge, or go to the point where they appear to diverge, and you'll notice that they still continue to diverge further and further away. You can never get to the point of convergence.
So what you're saying is
So-
magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, fun architectural fact. The Acropolis in ancient Athens, it's long enough, it's big enough that it would look as though it was bending away from you by that optical illusion. So they intentionally built it to have like the floor isn't actually level. They intentionally built it to curve so that when you look at it, it appears level. So this idea of like understanding how parallel line things behave in long distances, that's well understood back to like ancient
Yeah.
Greek.
And the other thing that something you could have refuted him with as soon as, and I know that you didn't completely understand the
I
concept
did
he
not
was bringing
understand
up
what
of
he was
crepuscular
saying.
rays,
Like-
but there's also something called anti-crepuscular rays. So
Yeah.
if you were to look at, let's say you were to put the sun at your back and look at those same rays that look like they're diverging from the point of the sun, when you put the sun at your back and you look at those same rays, what do? They converge. They come together at the opposite end. So why are these same rays that are diverging from one point, when you're looking in the opposite direction, they're converging to another? If they were truly diverging rays, then when you turn your head and you look in the opposite direction, they should continue to get further and further apart as they travel distance away from you. They shouldn't come back together. Being that they are relatively parallel, they will look like they converge when looking one way, and when you turn around and you look the other way, they do the same thing. They appear to converge at a point.
Yeah. Right, let's go on with the stupid.
I'd really like to focus on like things that are my field, right? So I'd like to stick to the atmosphere. If you want to
This is
talk
all my field. Okay, the atmosphere. Can you have gas pressure without a container?
Oh, there it
Yes.
is.
Yes.
Can you demonstrate that?
planet Earth.
Yes.
That's the thing you're trying to prove. So you're using circular logic. It's a fallacy. Do you know what circular logic is?
I do know what circular logic is,
Okay,
but the
so
point
other than what you believe Earth is, can you demonstrate gas
I
pressure
know
without a
what
container?
circular logic is, but the point is that planetary scale processes are only going to happen on a planetary scale.
So it
Right?
only
So
happens on Earth.
So I can point to Jupiter, I can point to Venus, I can point to Earth, right? And we can chat about the weight of the air above us, right? But so I actually got a question for you. So
Whoa,
if
whoa, 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 we can't just breeze by that, okay? Can you
It's
It
demonstrate?
is
related-
fair, Nathan.
it's
It is
related
fair that
to
she gets to ask you
pressure.
questions as well, right?
It's
Oh,
related
she
to
wants to
atmospheric
ask me a
pressure.
question. Is it related to gas pressure not requiring a container?
We
Or
can
are you
come
gonna
back
Yes.
to this.
Yes.
We can,
Right,
We're
go
still
ahead.
talking about that. Okay. So if we have gas in a pressurized container, right? Talk to me about the density of the gas throughout that container. Is it constant? Does it change?
Yeah, but it's in a
PV equals
container.
nRT,
Without the
Nathan.
container, you wouldn't have any pressure.
Oh, right. This is one of the most annoying flat Earth straw man arguments that they come up with. The whole you can't have gas pressure without a container, right? When you said, well, yeah, you can look at Earth, look at Jupiter. You are of course right, because there is no physical container, but in a way there is a container, because there's the downward acceleration caused by gravity that anything has to overcome to escape the surface of Earth, and that downward acceleration is the container. So the atmosphere is being contained by a natural phenomenon called gravity, but they say that gravity isn't real, which always blows my mind, honestly.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
So
the thing that I'm trying to
get
at here with him is, if the Earth had a lid, then the pressure would have to be constant throughout a column.
Yeah, PV equals nRT. We would see pressure variance alongside temperature variance.
Exactly. Or you would see temperature driven density differences, right? So
yes,
you would
exactly.
Where we're warmest at the surface should have the lowest pressure, and that's actually where you have measurably the highest pressure. And so that's he got really mad. He's about to just yell the periodic table at me.
Yeah, I know. This is amazing.
Right, we'll listen to about 5 more minutes of him, and then we'll go on to super chats.
Okay, but what about the density of the gas? Is it a constant?
It's not analogous to your Earth you believe in, because you're using a container. You realize that, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay,
but
so gas pressure requires a container.
My question is the density of the gas in that closed container a constant?
Well, that depends. Is it not if it's inhomogeneous and anisotropic, such as like introducing a heat source.
He pulls out the big word.
You do realize we have a sun and a moon above our heads, right? Okay, so if the sun's heating up the Earth and then the hot air rises and then the cold air moves in, so it's constantly mixing around all the time, yes, you would have what's called Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be talking while you were interrupting me. Go ahead.
So great. Temperature, density is affected by temperature. Excellent. So is the Earth, is our atmosphere heated from the top or from the bottom?
Oh, here we go.
Sun, moon.
The top or the bottom? I don't know. I don't know for sure. I don't know. I make assumptions of what the sun is. I have a theory that the sun might actually be cold, and that the
I have a theory that the sun might actually be cold. Well, I have a theory that you're dumb as fuck.
I need to make a short of that. Oh my god. I tell you what, guys. I think we're going to leave going over the debate there for now, because I think that's the pinnacle of Nathan's stupidity. Is I've got a theory
I just want to comment on that, and I've said this before, but I want to comment on that. The Earth is contained by a container. Okay, the container is the levels of atmosphere above wherever point you're measuring at. Those are individual containers. The thing about a balloon, right? You can fill up a balloon, but you can't constantly fill up a balloon forever. At some point, the pressure, the forces pushing outwards are going to exceed the internal forces of the balloon holding the balloon together. So even in that situation, there are forces that are acting as the container and nothing else, because once you exceed those forces, you no longer have containment of your gas that's on the inside. The same thing happens with Earth. And on Earth, we have a gravitational force, a downward acceleration that everything experiences. Okay, so basically, it's like a ramp. If you don't have enough energy to escape the ramp, then you're going to come back down to the bottom of the ramp. Where does the energy come from? Well, the sun heats up the surface of the Earth. The surface of the Earth heats up the atmosphere, and that is what determines how high, when these particles begin to rise, they are limited by, number one, the gravitational acceleration downwards and the amount of energy that they have to help them go upwards. If they have enough energy to escape the pull of gravity, then they'll escape it. Just like she said earlier, smaller planets that are smaller have lower gravitational force. Therefore, you have more escaping of the atmosphere out into free space. Whereas the Earth is a little bit bigger, we hold more of the atmosphere down than, let's say, Mars or the Moon. And Jupiter's even bigger than the Earth, so it holds more atmosphere down than all of them combined. So it's really one of these things where, yes, we do have a container, but it's not your conventional description of what a container is. Nathan wants it to be a glass container, a balloon that does not break. He does not accept the fact that, as Maddie had proposed, that PV equals nRT is a thing, and that if the atmosphere was enclosed, then we would absolutely see a correlation between the density of the atmosphere and the temperature at which, the localized temperature. So in areas where the temperature was higher, you would have more expansion of gas, lower pressure, and a lower density. Is that correct? Just to make sure or a higher density, lower density because it expands.
Lower pressure, lower density.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what we should see with a physical container over the top, but we actually see the opposite, meaning that the atmosphere has the ability to expand beyond what we would consider a container.
Yep. Basically what we're saying is flat earthers are all thick as shit and understand nothing. Right, I'm going to go through super chats. I'm going to read the ones that are directed towards Maddie first, because I know that she has to leave quite soon. I do want to say again, thank you, Maddie, for coming on. And your performance against Nathan was incredible. The link to Maddie's channel is in the description and in the pinned the chat message there. So please give Maddie a subscribe. Gaza the Master Viewer for £4.99 says, Maddie has the right strategy. Give Nathan the shovel and let him bury himself. But what really amazed me was her patience with Nathan's antics. Yeah, your patience was phenomenal, Maddie. Well done.
Well, thank you.
Right, let me see what everyone's up for. Maddie. Alien Spore for $2 says, Maddie, thank you for fighting the good fight. It's very refreshing to see a lady scientist on.
Thank you.
Women scientists there's no reason why women can't be scientists. I know quite a few ladies that are scientists. Maddie is obviously one of the smartest people that I've ever spoken to.
It's just unfortunate that on YouTube, on YouTube in this community or this genre of discussion of scientific debunking, there is a severe lack of female representation. So it's always fresh to see a new lady heading up on YouTube and doing, what we all do anyway.
Yeah.
It's going to help you out a lot. Yeah, it's going to help you out a lot. It helps you stand out against people like me and fight.
I did hit a milestone. I feel like I've made it on the internet. A flat earther came onto my channel to call me a dumb bitch. So
well, there you go. You've made it. You've absolutely made it.
Clearly, I've made it. I'm being insulted on the internet. So that's great. Yeah.
Good job.
You've made it when Scotty Storms takes off his shirt and starts calling you out. That's when you've officially made it.
Okay.
Do not look for Scotty Storm on YouTube. You trust me. Misty Knight for the Children for $10 says, Maddie, Nathan Thompson once bragged about his powerful computer brain and recited pi to 50 digits whilst missing a lot of them. Someone then asked him what pi was. He didn't have a clue and the whole room started laughing at him.
Oh no. That's not good.
No. Say Rodent No Last Name for $5 says, Maddie, how do we properly deal with actually crazy, insane people? What would we do to help them leave the cult of flat earth?
So I think there's kind of two things. One is you can't necessarily logic someone into a position that you can't logic someone out of a position they didn't logic themselves into. Right.
Good point.
So I think there's absolute a lot of value in combating combating the ideas, right? Because we don't want bad ideas to be put out there, right? Because that's going to fool a lot of people. And I'm against that, right? But for me, I think the best way to kind of combat the idea of whatever, pick your favorite conspiracy theory, and really I just view that as a form of radicalization. So I think trying to be approachable and treat people like humans, and when you fight an idea, fight the idea, not the person. And I think that's the caveat there is, unless that person is being intentionally dishonest and is benefiting from tricking other people, right? So I really do believe that genuine human connection is the way to combat most of this stuff.
I wish it were true with flat earthers. I really wish it was. There has been
I was about to say,
few.
now you guys can please call me naive.
There has been a few flat earthers where, the way that team and me and maybe Red's Rhetoric and others have tried to help has brought them back from sanity, but 99.999% of them want to be willfully ignorant. That's all I could, for them, it's that they have to be willfully ignorant.
It's hard to change a fanatic's mind.
Yeah.
It really is.
It absolutely is. And I will say, you can't change someone's mind who isn't willing for their mind to be changed.
No.
If that kind of makes sense.
Right. I think that was all the ones directed to Maddie in particular. Maddie, do you need to get off now, or?
Yeah, I do need to head out. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
I had a lot of fun having you on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. It really was.
We'll arrange
a breath of fresh air.
We'll arrange a suitable flat earther for you to come and have a talk with.
Okay. All right. I'll get my fighting gloves on or whatever.
Guys, if you haven't subscribed to Maddie over on her channel Sciencesideup, the link is in the description and in my pinned message in the chat. I think she's around 900 now. Let's see where we are.
Oh my god.
We'll get that over 1,000.
891. And I think that probably got to 1,000 by the time more people have watched this stream. So do me a favor and share her channel and her videos on Facebook and stuff, and let's get her in that YouTube algorithm, because she's an amazing science communicator. Maddie, thank you very much.
I do want to give people a suggestion to help Maddie out. Okay, if you're going to subscribe to her, do it through her most recent video. Okay, don't just go to her channel and subscribe.
Which is a good one.
If you go to her most if you go to her most recent video and subscribe through her most recent video, then the algorithm will pick up that video is something that drives people to subscribe to her channel and will promote that video as well as future videos better for her. So everybody out there, if you haven't already subscribed, and I know a lot of the people listening now have, but if you haven't already subscribed, don't just run to the channel and subscribe. Actually go and log into her last video and subscribe from her last video. It will truly help her out, and she deserves our help.
I've just put the link to the last one.
My last video is Genesis Apologetics, a young Earth creationism site, being really bad at carbon-14 dating and absolutely claiming that ancient civilizations had nuclear weapons.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the title of that, Maddie, I had to click and watch that. So yeah, it's called Genesis Apologetics thinks ancient nuclear weapons prohibit carbon-14 dating. I put the link to that. I put the link to that video in the chat. So please go and give Maddie a subscribe and help her get into that YouTube algorithm. Maddie, again, thank you very much for taking the time to come on. You're welcome back on the channel anytime. And massive congratulations for destroying Nathan Thompson the way you did.
Well, thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Very proud of you.
See you later. Thank you very much.
Bye, team.
Wow, she is lovely. I think I love her. I think we need to have her on the channel more often. Absolutely amazingly intelligent lady. Very, very smart. Unfortunately, her first introduction to Flat Earth was Nathan Thompson. So that's, I do feel sorry for her, but I think she did an amazing job, considering that was a short notice debate team because Reckless Ben dropped out or something. You know,
and I want everybody that goes to watch her debate to pay attention to how she handled Nathan. Like, she triggered Nathan by not emotionally reacting to what he normally gets an emotional reaction from. Like for me, I react emotionally a lot of times, and sometimes looking back on the debates, I feel like I'm feeding him what he wants. When you look at what Maddie does, she doesn't feed him, and I think that does help out a lot. Like it helps her position a lot that she didn't feed him, and it triggered him. It put him on in a position, in a situation that she's not normally, or that he's not, or Natalie's not normally used to being in.
No, not at all. Team, thank you for coming on. It's been awesome to have you on the channel going over that with Maddie. What have you got coming up on your channel?
I actually have a debate tomorrow night with the guy that debated on Brainy's channel last night. For those that didn't see it, Brainy debated I'm not Brainy, but a man named AJ debated a person named Philip on God, and I moderated that. I played a pretty much an unbiased moderator. There were some things that I had to interject on to say, hey, you made this mistake, or you made that mistake, you said this and this is not true. But it was all done in fair moderation. I would have done the same thing to AJ. the guy, I'm not going to classify the guy as a science denier. Like I said earlier in the pre-show, he was more of a science redefiner. So
Yeah.
he took these concepts of science and decided to give them their own significances. So I told him that that I wasn't debating him last night, that was AJ's platform, but that I would absolutely love to teach him science on my channel. So I'm going to be doing that on Saturday. And then
Looking
on
forward to that.
Sunday, we're going to be doing another torture stream. So for those people that enjoy torturing me for $1, you can head over there and torture me.
Nice. Look forward to
You've
that.
seen, I think you've seen it, right? The electric
Yeah,
shocker that I wear.
I was in the last one that you.
Oh,
when
you were
wearing
on
it.
the, you were there the last time. That's right.
I
forgot
might
you
have
were
sent
there
a
the
couple of
last time.
super chats to electrocute you. I mean, just saying. Right, guys.
I thought about doing it during the debate so people could fuck with me while I was debating
oh, that'd be hilarious.
this guy. I can withstand an electric shock.
What you should do is arrange a debate where both you and your opponent have to wear them.
Oh, I would never do that to my opponent. That's painful. Right. It's not fun. I don't mind it, but it's not fun.
I'm going to read the super chats. Guys, amazingly generous tonight. There was over 700 of you watching for most of it, so thank you very much for that. And super chats, incredibly generous. I know that not everyone's able to support financially, and if you want to help the channel, like we were saying with Maddie, the best way to help is to obviously be subscribed to the channel, but to share our stuff on social media. 60% of my views come from social media, and 2/3 of that is from Facebook. So if you want to help the channel grow and get the videos seen, share my stuff on Facebook and Twitter and any other social media you can get hold of. But for now, let me read the rest of the super chats. We've got Paul Quamish for £5 says, FTFE, you didn't invite me on your show after my debate with Witsit. I'm also Army, lol. Were you the pilot, Paul? Because you did fucking amazingly, by the way. I've been meaning to go over some things in that debate. Mr. Marlowe for $4.99. I may have dug trenches, but I don't wear a dog ball on my head. Infantry leads the way. Navy, all the way. How are you guys going to get to your bloody wars without us taking you there, eh?
Yeah, no shit, right?
Geza, the mass reviewer. Oh no, we've read that one. Bryson Evie in New Zealand for $2 says Nathan sucks at too many things to list. Yeah, correct. Bitwise79 for $2 says Nathan Echotrams. I think that might be possibly Klingon. I'm not sure, but Echotrams Mill. Maybe not Klingon, maybe I just insulted you because it's a proper language, who knows. Neuter Pant for CHF5 says, have some Illuminati money, thank you. Illuminati money does sustain me. Bob's Gyroscope, thanks Bob, for $5 says, when Bob, Jeranism and Nathan entered the same room, the combined stupid provided me sentience. I love you all, 15 degrees per hour drift. Thank you, Bob's Gyroscope, you have helped my debates immensely. Stephen Potts for $5 says, in my head as Nathan was talking, then I heard him saying, in my head, I don't know what the moon is. He doesn't know what anything is, though. And more importantly, he thinks the sun is cold. Blinder for $5 says, as a self-appointed spokesman for the International Council of Nathans, I would like to remind everyone that Mr. Thompson does not represent us. Yeah, I can't look at anyone called Nathan now. Like, someone showed me a baby recently, was like, oh, I've called him Nathan. I was like, no, you haven't. Why? Oh, you obviously don't know about Nathan Thompson. Oh God, and Nathan Oakley and Nathan Roberts. You should not call people Nathan. Paul Camish says that yes, he is the pilot. Oh, Paul, you did extremely well debating Witsit. Maybe we can get you on to review that debate sometime. That'd be fun. DK £4.99 with no message, thank you. The Sir Spence for €5 says, I think Nathan is so dangerous. He is dumb as fuck, but his impressive sounding words could convince someone he knows what he is talking about. And that is why people like Team and me and Brainy and Reds and Radical and all the other awesome debunkers, that's why we do this. Because there will be some people convinced by the bullshit that pour out of their mouths. So we have an important job here, I think. Yeah. Alien Spore for $2 says, Maddie, thank you for fighting the good fight. I read that one. Robbie for $5 says, he stole the you're not qualified for this debate when he wasn't qualified to debate Aaron Ra. Yes, that was another destruction of Nathan Thompson that Aaron Ra did. Carrie Bronson, $5 says, I think she was the most directly qualified anti-Flerf ever to grace the channel. Yeah, her qualifications specifically involve demonstrating the Earth is a rotating globe. William Foley for $10. Nathan's biggest problem in this debate was he was debating a smart woman. He could barely control his misogyny. Think that's true, team? Do you think the fact that she was a woman triggered him more?
I think all women trigger him, to be honest with you. It's why he
Yeah.
treated his girlfriend the way he treated his girlfriend. That's why when when he had his crying in the car moment, that was one of the truest moments you'll ever see with him. That was a
Yeah.
moment where he realized that he could not, even when he loved his girlfriend, he could not under any circumstances control her enough to keep her from drinking blood, according to him. So what did he do? He allowed that to emotionally affect him enough to cry on camera and put a video out about it, which I love. It's one of my favorite videos. I'm
Yeah.
intending on making that a ringtone at someday. Why does she have to drink blood? Because you're stupid. Because you cannot fool a woman that has a normal intellect, or, not for lack of a better word, a crazy bitch. You can't pull someone who's not a crazy bitch because you're a fucking flat earther and you offer nothing to your partner.
And flat
Want better
earthers are all
women?
fucking
Be a
idiots.
better person.
Mm-hmm. He's never going to be a better person, though, because he's Nathan Thompson. Throw the Dwarf for
Fuck
$5
Nathan
Australian says,
Thompson.
I don't want to. That would be disgusting. Unfortunately, Maddie fell into the trap of having to defend the globe while Nathan jumped around tossing shit at her. Like I said, this was her first debate against a flat earther, and that's kind of what you're going to do. Team, me, others that have debated flat earthers for ages, we know how to deal with them. We know their script. Maddie doesn't, which makes her performance that much more impressive. The
Yeah,
Sun
yeah.
Express,
So we've heard
yeah,
it all. We've heard it all.
yeah,
The moment they even begin to speak on a flat Earth proof, before they get to the finish of their proof, we already know what they're about to say. It's a lot easier for us. For Maddie, it was a matter of knowledge versus script. Where Nathan had the script, she had the knowledge to deal with his script.
yeah. The Sun Express for $10 says dome firmament peddlers would have to explain curious weather patterns that would have to occur whatever the alleged dome firmament went wherever the alleged dome firmament meets Antarctica. Yeah, there's so much wrong with the dome. One thing I keep saying that is if we're in a dome and the sun is within the dome, regardless of where it's going at night, the overall result of that, it's going to be constantly heating up inside that dome, and basically the Earth would be an easy bake oven. So, no.
Yeah.
Korean Tech, Corn Tech, sorry, for $5 says, loved her composure. Nathan claimed we used lasers before the mirrors, but he confused laser light with radar. Yeah, here's the thing: you can ping the moon without using that laser system, and the retroreflectors, right? But the signal you get back isn't going to be as accurate or as strong. It's going to be a lot more diffuse, and it's going to be a lot harder to determine the thing that you are trying to determine. The laser reflection specifically gives you accurate data, and with a strong return signal from a flat surface. There's a reason why they've done it. Throw the Dwarf for another $10 Australian says, don't defend the globe, attack the flat earth. The Bigfoot debate was the first debate where I went in thinking, no way it exists, and walked out saying, that Bigfoot might really exist. Oh, really? I might have to watch that Bigfoot debate.
Well, okay, so when it comes to things like Bigfoot, we see primates on the Earth, okay, and we also discover new species all the time.
Yeah.
So the idea that a Bigfoot could exist is improbable, but it's not impossible. So you have to accept the fact. It's kind of like the black swan,
Yeah.
If you only see white swans all around you, you can easily come to believe that there are no such things as black swans, but it only takes the discovery of one black swan to prove that all swans are white is incorrect. So with Bigfoot, I don't believe in Bigfoot, but I do understand where their argument comes in, and they say, how do we know? How do we haven't discovered all the species on Earth. We discover new species every day. Species die out every day. Species that we believe to be extinct, we see them every day. There's always, biology is such a different topic that with Bigfoot, there could be a Bigfoot. I don't think there is, but there could be. Who knows?
I don't know. There's hobbits. They're real, so maybe. I mean, just look at Planet Walk. Circle
Yeah.
Back 96 for $2 says, team, you've never been to Uranus, but I have.
It was very fun for me when you went to my anus.
Nathy Shiro for 2 Canadian says, need to go to work, but thank you for the live stream. Thank you for being here and sending the super chat, although you're not here now because you went to work, but thanks anyway.
Nathashiro.
How'd you say it? Nathashiro.
Oh, I say it different every single fucking time. Natahushiro.
Nate, it's Nathi Shiro or Nathi Shiro. I don't know. Stephen Potts for
Nahashiro.
$5 says, did some searches and there are mentions of electromagnetic wakes in plasma physics and controlled fusion, but nothing having to do with the atmosphere. No, absolutely not. He heard an impressive sounding thing and said it, thinking that he could get Maddie into a corner because she'd never heard of electromagnetic wakes because they aren't what he says they are. Carrie Bronson for $5 says, funny how Nathan never called FTFE or Red or anyone or any other opponents unqualified, even though none of them are even close to Maddie's level. Yeah, all right. I'm smart, okay? I've got 2 bachelor's degrees, but Maddie is close to getting her doctorate. She was a instructor at the nuclear school for American Navy. She is orders of magnitude smarter than me. So Nathan calling her unqualified is ridiculous because he's, like you said, he's never said that to me. He's never said that to Team. But we're intellectual peons compared to Maddie, aren't we, Team?
Oh yeah, for sure.
New member, Circleback96. Thank you, you fucking awesome person. You rodent no last name for $50. Thank you very much, buddy. Please point to the accurate flat Earth weather forecasting website. I'll wait. We're all going to be waiting a while for that. A long, long time. I'm not going to wait because I want to read the rest of this, but we would have to wait a long time. Carrie Bronson for $5 says, oh, it jumped. Kent Hovind SpongeBob routine. He borrowed Nathan borrowed Kent Hovind's SpongeBob routine. He borrowed Duane Gish's debate tactic, and he borrowed Ken Ham's money making strategies. People send him money, and I don't understand it. Like, even since he stole the money from Whitsit and the rest of the flat earthers, people are still sending him money. Stop sending Nathan Thompson money. You're feeding a drug addict. The Sun Express for $5 says, I see crepuscular rays all the time when scuba diving, which means the sun floats on the sea surface, according to Nancy Boy. Go and put that in one of his videos, see what he says. Hopswatch for $50 Donkey Kong dollar says, a wish of mine is to have FTFE and our Team Skeptic on my channel for a chat and a pint. And for another $20 Donkey Kong dollars, he says, and Maddie, of course. Maybe we can arrange that. Sparky NJ for $5 says, I say her target should be Whitsit. She would dissect his word salad without breaking a sweat. She may need some alcohol first, though. That would be a good debate. Whitsit against Maddie. I think I can set that up.
Fuck that homophobic, transphobic piece of shit.
True. It's hard because so many flat earthers are pieces.
Do what you do, but fuck
so many flat earthers are pieces of shit. That's the thing. I mean, even Vlad had said some horrific things in the past, but he apologized and said that he's a better person than that. Yeah, you're right.
Me and Vlad have had conversations about that. I said, hey, man, don't say shit like that. It doesn't help your argument out. It only going to make you look like a racist, sexist, homophobic pig. So if you really are trying to get a point across, if you're really trying to win a debate, the best thing to do is to approach the debate with facts and not fucking attacking the other person for either their, genetic structure, their, the way they see themselves, or, the person they choose to love. It's just not worth it. Yeah. Whitsit's a whole nother ball game. He's a whole 10 levels worse than anything Rad Vlad could ever be.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
Fuck Austin Whitsit.
I'd get him on with conditions about what he's allowed to talk about, and any shit from him would get him ejected immediately. Rodent Now name for $5 says, thank you for being a debunker regardless of gender. Just because there are few females, it makes your voice louder. Yeah, and she's awesome. Like I said, she's way smarter than me. Everyone should subscribe to her. Fuck YouTube for $5 says, my fridge broke. Can I leave my food out in the cold sunlight? No, don't do that. You ruin it. Holy Smalls for $10 says, why can't Flerfs think in 3D? Take crepuscular rays. If they use a third line, depth instead of just 2, height and width, you'd end up with a sun that is just through those clouds, really far away. It's maths, dude. You can't expect a flat earther to do actual maths. Rocky Bixby for 5 Canadian says, I want to know if the dome is supposed to be opaque or transparent and why there is reflections or glint. Yeah, I've heard Nathan say that the dome is made of gold, and that definitely wouldn't be transparent to see the waters above. But Bernie Zarsov, okay, for $5 Australian says, great to hear Team on the channel again. Yeah, I had to pay him loads. How much was the bill, Team?
thousands and thousands and thousands of Zimbabwe
slaps
dollars.
in the face.
I got $1 trillion Zimbabwe dollars from Fight to do this.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And then Balthazar228, last one for $4.99 says, can't wait until we have some incredible pictures from one of the Mars rovers or another one. Of one of the Mars rovers, of another one of the Mars rovers. I'll be doing some curve proofs via drone this summer. I can't wait for the drone to take off Mars. I said it was tomorrow. I thought I read that somewhere, but I might be wrong. It might be later on next month. I'm not sure. But whenever it is, it's going to blow the flat earthers' minds, and there's going to be some amazing videos to respond to. Last super chat from Paul Kamish, the pilot debated wits. It says, I've also debated Eiger television. I think I did better than you, FTFE, lol. Wow, yeah, but Eiger Television came in saying that he was going to present a model and then gave an ODD rap
That was
song.
hard to watch.
That was
hard
wasn't
to
it?
watch.
It was.
Yes. Not because of you, but because of him.
Yeah. Another one from Rodent No Last Name for $5 says, for Nathan's beer and cocaine habit. Oh, wrong fundraiser. Thank you, Rodent No Last Name, and thank you everybody for the for the super chats and the memberships. It allows me to keep the channel going and keep the lights on in this NASA paid for studio. I hope you guys enjoyed the debate review. Nathan Thompson, I hope you enjoyed being in the chat and watching everyone laugh at you, because we all know you're there. Maddie, thank you for coming on. Everyone, please subscribe to Maddie. Team, thank you very much for coming on and being part of this.
Yeah. I have one more thing to say. Nathan Thompson always says you can lead a globe earther to evidence, but you can't get him to think critically about the shape of the earth. Well, I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to counter that by saying you can lead a flat earther to a tub of water, but if you're not strong enough and fast enough, you can't end his misery. Okay?
How'd you make a flat earther commit suicide, team?
Put a scratch and sniff sticker at the bottom of a pool.
Yep, that's right. Some flat earthers are vegans, right? I mean, I don't understand that, because if a flat earther eats a vegetable, isn't that cannibalism?
Yeah, pretty much.
One last super chat. Balthazar228 for $9.99 says, do you notice a brain cell drift during debates with flat earthers? A 15 IQ per hour drift? Thanks, Bob. Also, what on earth is the 8 inches per mile squared? That feels like a nonsense unit of repetition wrong. It's a chord measurement that flat earthers misapply, basically. And it doesn't demonstrate what they want it to. Again, thank you everyone for the super chats. Thank you for enjoying the stream. Subscribe to Maddie. Subscribe to Team Skeptic. I will see you on Sunday for another episode of Stupidity is Not a Right. Remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat. 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 Fight the flat.